I should have known better than to fall in love with someone who saves lives for a living. Because when it came down to choosing between me and her career, I never stood a chance. That's what most people would think. But this isn't a story about a woman who chose her career over love. This is about Emily Rhodes, a brilliant ER nurse who spent years believing she had to be smaller, quieter, less ambitious to deserve happiness. And this is about the man who refused to let her disappear. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Emily's journey travels. The notification came through at 6:47 p.m., just as Emily Rhodes was stepping out of the shower. Still on for tonight? 7:30 at Josephine's? Her wet hair dripped onto the screen of her phone as she stared at Noah's message, her stomach twisting into knots. She'd been looking forward to this date all week, their first real date, after 3 weeks of increasingly flirtatious texts and one accidental coffee meeting that had stretched into 3 hours. But now, standing in her tiny bathroom with steam still fogging the mirror, Emily felt the familiar weight of dread settling over her shoulders. She was going to be late. Again. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. She'd requested the early shift specifically so she could leave the hospital by 5 p.m., giving herself plenty of time to go home, shower, actually put on makeup for once, and arrive at the restaurant looking like a normal woman on a normal date. Not like the exhausted, perpetually behind apologetic mess she usually was. But Teresa had called in sick at the last minute, and the evening shift was already understaffed, and Emily had looked at her charge nurse's desperate face and heard herself saying, "I can stay until 6, just until the rush dies down." 6 had turned into 6:30. 6:30 had turned into a cardiac emergency that required all hands on deck. And now it was 6:47, and Emily was standing in her bathroom dripping wet, with exactly 43 minutes to transform herself into someone who looked like she had her life together. She typed back quickly, "Yes, on my way soon. Traffic might make me a few minutes late." It was a lie. Traffic wasn't the problem. She was the problem. Her job was the problem. Her inability to say no was the problem. Emily dried off in record time, her mind racing through the familiar calculations. Hair up or down? Down looked better, but took longer. Up was faster, more practical. She twisted her dark hair into a messy bun, the same style she wore at work, she realized with a flash of irritation, and moved to her closet. What did people wear on dates? Real dates? Not the hurried coffee meetings or lunch breaks she usually managed. She pulled out a blue sundress, then put it back. Too casual. A black cocktail dress. Too formal. A floral blouse and jeans. Too trying hard. The clock on her dresser mocked her. 7:02. "Damn it," she whispered, grabbing the jeans and a simple white blouse. She could make this work. She had to make this work. Because Noah was different. She'd known it from the moment they'd met 3 weeks ago, when she'd literally crashed into him outside the hospital cafeteria, sending his coffee flying and his papers scattering across the linoleum floor. He'd been there visiting a friend who worked in radiology, and instead of being annoyed about his ruined shirt, he'd helped her pick up the patient files she'd dropped, making a joke about how they should probably exchange insurance information. He had kind eyes. That's what she'd noticed first. Warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and a quiet steadiness that made her rambling apologies trail off mid-sentence. "You okay?" he'd asked, and she'd realized she was shaking, not from the collision, but from the 16-hour shift she'd just finished. They'd ended up in the cafeteria together, Emily nursing a terrible cup of coffee while Noah told her about his electrical business and his daughter. He didn't mind that she was still in scrubs. Didn't seem bothered when her phone buzzed every few minutes with work notifications. He just listened, asked questions, laughed at her stories about the chaos of the ER. When they'd finally parted ways 2 hours later, he'd asked for her number, and she'd given it to him without the usual hesitation, without the voice in her head screaming that this was a bad idea, that she didn't have time for this, that she'd just end up disappointing him. And now, 3 weeks later, she was about to prove that voice right. Emily finished dressing at 7:14, grabbed her purse, and ran to her car. The drive to Josephine's usually took 20 minutes. She made it in 16, white-knuckling the steering wheel and sending up silent apologies to the traffic gods for every yellow light she pushed through. The restaurant was tucked into a quiet corner of South Austin, The kind of neighborhood place with string lights outside and mismatched furniture inside that somehow managed to feel both hip and homey. Emily had suggested it because it was casual enough that she wouldn't feel out of place, but nice enough to show that she'd put thought into this. Except now she was pulling into the parking lot at 7:38, 8 minutes late and counting, and all that thoughtfulness felt like a cruel joke. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror one last time. No makeup except for the mascara she'd swiped on at a red light, hair already escaping from her bun, a faint coffee stain on her blouse that she'd tried unsuccessfully to rub out with a wet napkin. "You look like exactly what you are," she told her reflection. "A disaster." For a moment, one long, painful moment, Emily seriously considered just driving away. She could text Noah later, make up some excuse about a family emergency or a sudden illness, ghost him slowly over the next few days until he got the message. It would be kinder than dragging him into the mess that was her life. But then she remembered those kind eyes and that steady voice and the way he'd said, "You okay?" Like he actually wanted to know the answer. She turned off the car and made herself walk toward the restaurant. The hostess greeted her with a professional smile that didn't quite mask her judgment. Emily was acutely aware of how she must look, flustered, underdressed, clearly not the type of woman who belonged in a place with cloth napkins and wine glasses. "I'm meeting someone," Emily said, her voice coming out smaller than she'd intended. "Noah Walker? He should already be here." "Oh yes, Mr. Walker." The hostess's smile warmed slightly. "He's at the corner table, right this way." Emily followed her through the restaurant, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The place was busier than she'd expected for a Friday night. Couples and small groups filling nearly every table, conversation and laughter creating a warm buzz that only made Emily feel more out of place. And then she saw him. Noah was sitting at a small table near the back window, and Emily's first thought was that he looked exactly the same as he had in the cafeteria 3 weeks ago, solid and calm, and somehow reassuring just in the way he took up space. He was wearing jeans and a dark blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms that spoke of manual labor. His hair, sandy brown with hints of gray at the temples, was slightly rumpled, like he'd run his hands through it a few times while waiting. He was reading something on his phone, but he looked up as she approached, and his face split into a genuine smile that made Emily's chest ache. "Emily," he said, standing up. "Hey." "I'm so sorry," she blurted out, the words tumbling over themselves in their rush to escape. "I'm so sorry I'm late. I was supposed to get off at 5, but then Teresa called in sick, and we were short-staffed, and I told myself I'd just stay until 6, but then there was this cardiac patient who came in, and it was all hands on deck, and I tried to leave, but I couldn't just walk away when someone might die. And then traffic was terrible, and I know I said 7:30, and it's now almost 7:45, and I completely understand if you want to just—" "Emily," Noah's voice was quiet, but firm enough to cut through her spiraling apology. "Breathe." She stopped mid-sentence, realizing she'd been talking without taking in air. "Sit down," he said, pulling out her chair. "Please." Emily sat, feeling off balance and uncertain. This was usually the moment when the other person, whoever she was disappointing this time, would launch into their own speech about how they understood she was busy, but maybe this wasn't a good time, or perhaps they weren't looking for something serious after all. But Noah didn't say any of that. He sat back down across from her and flagged down a passing waiter. "Could we get some water here?" he asked. "And maybe one of those appetizer menus?" The waiter nodded and disappeared. Noah turned back to Emily, and she braced herself. "When did you last eat?" he asked. The question caught her so off guard that she actually had to think about it. Lunch? Maybe? What time is it now?" "Almost 8. "Then 7 hours ago. Maybe 8. Noah shook his head, but he was smiling. "You save lives all day and forget to feed yourself?" "It's not. I mean, we're just really busy, and—" "I'm not criticizing," Noah said gently. "I'm just trying to figure out if you need food or a drink first." Emily stared at him. "You're not mad that I'm late?" "Mad?" Noah looked genuinely confused. "Why would I be mad?" "Because I said 7:30, and it's—" "Emily." He leaned forward slightly, his brown eyes steady on hers. "You were saving someone's life. You think I'm going to be upset about that?"
She didn't know what to say. Every other man she'd dated, not that there had been many, but enough, had made it clear that her job was a problem. Too demanding, too unpredictable, too much a part of who she was to leave room for them. The waiter returned with water and menus. Noah ordered them both drinks, whiskey for himself, wine for her after a quick confirming glance, and asked for the charcuterie board to start. "Tell me about the patient," he said once the waiter left. "What?" "The cardiac patient, the one who kept you late. What happened?" Emily felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. "You actually want to hear about this?" "I asked, didn't I?" So she told him. About Mr. Chen, the 68-year-old who'd come in complaining of indigestion and had nearly died before they caught the heart attack in progress.
About the controlled chaos of the ER when a code blue was called. The way everyone moved with practiced precision. The moment when they'd got his rhythm back and Emily had felt that familiar surge of relief mixed with residual adrenaline. Noah listened without interrupting, nodding in the right places, asking clarifying questions that showed he was actually paying attention. When she finished, he sat back with a low whistle. "That's incredible," he said. "Mr. Chen has no idea how lucky he was that you were there. It wasn't just me, the whole team. I know, but you were part of it. You helped save his life." Noah smiled. "And now you're here, having dinner with me. I'd say I'm the lucky one." Emily felt heat rising in her cheeks. She grabbed her water glass to hide her embarrassment. "You're being too nice about this." "About what? You doing your job?" "About me being late. About showing up looking like—" She gestured vaguely at herself. "This?" Noah's eyes traveled over her face, her hastily pinned hair, her simple blouse. His expression was thoughtful. "You know what I see? A mess? A woman who spent her whole day taking care of other people and still made time to be here." He paused. "You're still in work mode, you know. You've got that look, like you're ready to jump up and run if someone needs you." Emily realized he was right. She was sitting on the edge of her seat, her phone face up on the table, her body tensed for action. "Sorry, it's a habit." "Don't apologize. I get it." Noah took a sip of his whiskey, which had just arrived. "I'm the same way with work calls. Ask my daughter. I've jumped up from the dinner table more times than I can count." "Lily, right?" Emily remembered the way Noah's whole face had softened when he talked about his daughter during their first conversation. "She's 7? 7 going on 17, according to her." Noah's smile was pure fondness. "She's with my sister tonight. They're having a girls' night, which apparently involves painting nails and watching princess movies I'm not cool enough to appreciate." "You have her full-time?" "Yeah, her mom—" Noah's expression flickered, just for a second. "That's a longer story, but yes, it's been just the two of us for about 3 years now." Emily wanted to ask more, but the food arrived, an impressive spread of cheeses, meats, and crackers that made her realize just how hungry she actually was. They spent the next few minutes assembling combinations and arguing good-naturedly about whether brie or aged cheddar was superior. "So tell me more about the electrical business," Emily said, popping a cracker topped with fig jam and cheese into her mouth. "You said you started it yourself?" Noah nodded. "About 5 years ago. I was working for a big contractor doing residential and commercial installations. Good pay, but the hours were killing me, and I barely saw Lily. Her mom and I were already separated, and I was missing bedtime, school events, everything that mattered." He shrugged. "So I took the leap. Started taking on my own clients, built it up slowly. Now I've got a small crew, 3 guys who work with me regularly, and I can actually control my schedule. Most days, anyway." "That must have been scary, starting over like that." "Terrifying," Noah admitted. "The first year I wasn't sure we'd make it, but Lily needed me present, not just providing, and I couldn't be present working 60-hour weeks for someone else." Emily heard the echo of her own struggles in his words. "How do you balance it, the business and being a single parent?" "Some days better than others." Noah smiled wryly. "I've learned to be okay with imperfect. Lily's had cereal for dinner more times than I'd like to admit. The house is usually a disaster, but she knows I'm there. That's what matters." They talked through dinner, really talked. The kind of conversation that ranged from the serious to the ridiculous and back again. Noah told her about Lily's obsession with building things.
how she'd recently helped him rewire a lamp and had spent an hour asking questions about how electricity worked. Emily told him about her decision to become a nurse, how she'd started as a medical assistant and worked her way through nursing school while supporting herself. "Your family must be proud," Noah said. Emily's smile dimmed slightly. "They, don't really get it. My mom wanted me to do something more stable, less stressful. She worries." "Because of the hours?" "Because of everything. The exposure to disease, the trauma, the emotional toll. She thinks I'm sacrificing too much." Emily traced the rim of her wine glass. "She might be right. Are you happy doing it?" The question was simple, but it hit Emily with unexpected force. Yes. Even on the worst days, when I'm exhausted and emotionally drained and wondering why I do this to myself, yes. I can't imagine doing anything else." "Then your mom's wrong," Noah said firmly. "You're not sacrificing too much. You're living your purpose." Emily looked up, startled by the conviction in his voice. Thank you. Most people don't understand that. Most people haven't found their purpose, so they can't recognize it in someone else." They ordered dessert, a chocolate lava cake they split between them, and somewhere around the third bite, Emily realized something startling. She was happy. Not just content or comfortable, but genuinely, fully happy. The knot of anxiety she'd been carrying since the moment she'd gotten Noah's text had completely dissolved. She wasn't worried about saying the wrong thing, or being too much or not enough. She was just herself. And Noah seemed perfectly fine with that. It was after 10 when they finally left the restaurant. The night air was warm and sticky, typical Austin humidity that made Emily's blouse cling to her back within seconds of stepping outside. "Can I walk you to your car?" Noah asked. "It's literally right there." Emily pointed to her beat-up Honda, parked 3 spots away. "Humor me. My mom raised me right." They walked the short distance slowly, neither of them seeming in a hurry to end the evening. When they reached her car, Emily turned to face him, suddenly nervous again. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "For waiting and for not being mad and for just being really great about everything." "Emily." Noah took a small step closer. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure." "When you texted that you'd be a few minutes late, I wasn't worried. You want to know why?" She nodded. "Because in the 3 weeks since we met, you've answered every text, shown up to every coffee date, asked about my day, remembered details about Lily." He paused. "The only times you've ever been late or had to cancel was because of work, because someone needed you. And honestly, that tells me more about who you are than being on time ever could." Emily felt her throat tighten. "I've had people tell me I care too much about my job, that I need better boundaries. Those people were idiots." Noah's voice was gentle but certain. "You know what I see when I look at you. Someone who shows up, every time, for everyone, even when it costs you something. That's not always a good thing. Maybe not, but it's who you are." He smiled, "And I happen to really like who you are." For a moment, they just stood there in the parking lot, the warm night wrapping around them, the distant sounds of the city humming in the background. Emily became acutely aware of how close Noah was standing, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "I really want to kiss you right now," Noah said quietly. "But I also don't want to rush anything, so I'm going to be a gentleman and just say goodnight. But I want you to know, I'm thinking about it." Emily surprised herself by laughing. "Well, now I'm going to be thinking about it too." "Good," Noah grinned. "Something to look forward to for next time." "There's going to be a next time?" "Emily Rhodes, I'm going to see you again as many times as you'll let me. Fair warning." He stepped back, giving her space to get in her car, but his eyes stayed on her, warm and steady, and full of something that made Emily's heart do uncomfortable flips in her chest. She drove home in a daze, replaying the evening in her mind. When she finally collapsed onto her couch at 11 p.m., still in her clothes, her phone buzzed with a text. "Made it home safe. Dreaming of chocolate lava cake and really good company. Sleep well, Emily." She smiled at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Finally, she typed, "Best first date I've ever had. Thank you for being patient with me." His response came within seconds. "Being patient with you isn't hard.
Looking forward to the next one already. Emily fell asleep that night with her phone still in her hand, a smile on her face, and for the first time in years, a tiny seed of hope taking root in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, this could actually work. The next few weeks passed in a blur of increasingly frequent texts, stolen phone calls during her breaks, and carefully planned dates that accommodated both their chaotic schedules. Noah never complained when she had to reschedule. He never made her feel guilty for the demands of her job. Instead, he worked around it, suggesting breakfast dates before his early morning jobs or late dinners after her shifts. Their second date was at a food truck park, where they shared tacos and argued about the best salsa while sitting on picnic benches under string lights. Their third was a walk around Lady Bird Lake that turned into 3 hours of conversation so engrossing that Emily almost forgot to check her phone. Their fourth was coffee and pastries at an early morning bakery, squeezing in an hour together before Emily's shift and Noah's first job of the day. Each time, Emily found herself relaxing a little more, opening up a little wider. The walls she'd carefully constructed around herself, protection against the inevitable disappointment when people realized she wasn't going to change, wasn't going to prioritize them over her patients, began to crack. "Tell me about your family," Noah asked one Sunday morning as they nursed coffee on Emily's tiny apartment balcony. It was early, barely 7 a.m., but they'd learned to take the time when they could find it. Emily wrapped her hands around her mug, choosing her words carefully. "There's not much to tell. My parents are good people. They live in Dallas. We talk maybe once a month." "That's it? Once a month?" "They don't really approve of my life choices." Emily shrugged, trying to make it sound casual. "They wanted me to marry my college boyfriend, get a nice desk job, have kids by now, the whole traditional path. And you wanted to save lives instead." "Something like that." She took a sip of coffee. "My ex, Mark, he didn't understand either. Wanted me to switch to clinic work. 9 to 5, no weekends, no emergencies. He had our whole future planned out." "What happened?" "I said no." Emily smiled without humor. "Turns out that was a deal breaker. He gave me an ultimatum, the ER or him." "And you chose the ER." "I chose myself," Emily corrected. "The ER is part of who I am. Asking me to give it up would be like asking me to cut off my own arm." Noah was quiet for a moment, watching her. "How long ago was this?" 3 years. Haven't really dated seriously since then. A few coffee dates here and there, but nothing that stuck." She looked at him over the rim of her mug. "Most guys run when they realize what they're getting into." "Their loss," Noah said simply. "You say that now, but when I have to cancel plans last minute, or I'm too exhausted to do anything but sleep, or I have nightmares about patients I couldn't save." "Emily." Noah set down his coffee and took her hand. "I've got a 7-year-old daughter and run my own business. You think I don't understand chaos? Last week, Lily had the stomach flu. I had 3 emergency calls, and my truck broke down all in the same day. Life is messy. Work is unpredictable. That's just reality." "It's different." "It's not different. You're just used to people making you feel like it is." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "Here's what I know. You show up for your patients because they need you. I show up for Lily because she needs me. We're both doing the best we can with what we've got. And somehow, we're still finding time for this, for us. That's not something to apologize for. That's something to celebrate." Emily felt tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them back, embarrassed. "Sorry, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. Maybe because someone's finally telling you it's okay to be exactly who you are." And that was it, wasn't it? Noah wasn't asking her to be different, wasn't waiting for her to transform into someone easier, more available, less consumed by her work. He was just accepting her, all of her, the good, the messy, the complicated. It was terrifying. "I really like you," Emily whispered, "and that scares me." "Good," Noah said, squeezing her hand. "I really like you too, and it scares the hell out of me." They sat there in the early morning light, hands linked, both of them teetering on the edge of something neither quite dared to name yet. Below them, the city was waking up, car engines starting, dogs barking, the distant wail of a siren that made Emily's shoulders tense automatically. "You want to go in?" Noah asked, noticing her reaction. "No." Emily forced herself to relax. I'm off today. For once. The world can manage without me for 24 hours. What do you want to do with your precious day off? Emily looked at him, this man who'd somehow crashed into her life and refused to be scared away, and made a decision. I want you to meet Lily. Noah's eyebrows shot up. Really? Is that too fast? I know we've only been seeing each other for a few weeks, and I don't want to confuse her if this isn't Emily. Noah was smiling now, that warm, genuine smile that made her feel like maybe she was doing something right. I would love for you to meet Lily, but I need you to understand something first. What? Lily is my whole world. If you meet her, if you become part of her life, and then you decide this isn't what you want, he took a breath. I need to know you're serious about this, about us, because I can handle getting hurt, but I won't let her get attached to someone who's going to disappear. The weight of what he was asking settled over Emily. This wasn't just about them anymore. It was about a little girl who'd already lost her mother, who deserved stability and protection, and people who would stick around. I'm serious, Emily heard herself say. I can't promise I won't mess this up. I probably will at some point, but I'm not going anywhere. Not if you'll have me. Noah studied her face for a long moment, and Emily held her breath, suddenly terrified he'd see through her, see all the ways she was broken and scared and completely unprepared for this. But then he smiled, that beautiful, steady smile, and said, Okay, let's do it. Fair warning, she's going to ask you a million questions, probably show you every single one of her toys, and definitely try to talk you into building a blanket fort. I think I can handle that. Can you handle pizza for lunch and cartoons after? Noah Walker, I'm an ER nurse. I've handled gunshot wounds and cardiac arrests. I think I can manage pizza and cartoons. He laughed, pulling her close and pressing a kiss to her temple. The first real physical contact beyond hand-holding and one quick goodbye kiss after their second date. Emily leaned into him, breathing in the smell of coffee and something woodsy that must have been his shampoo. Fair warning number 2, Noah murmured against her hair. I'm probably going to fall in love with you. Emily's breath caught. That's a pretty big warning. I believe in being honest. Then I should probably warn you too. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. I'm probably going to mess this up. I'm going to work too much and worry too much and apologize too much. I'm going to have days where I'm too exhausted to be good company. I'm going to have nightmares about patients I lost. I'm going to be difficult and complicated and way too much work. Emily, but I'm also probably going to fall in love with you. The words came out barely above a whisper. And that terrifies me more than anything. Noah cupped her face in his hands, his calloused thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Then I guess we'll just have to be terrified together. When he kissed her, really kissed her this time, Emily felt something click into place inside her chest, like a puzzle piece she hadn't known was missing, suddenly sliding home. She'd spent so long convinced that her life had no room for this, that she was too much and not enough simultaneously, that love was something other people got to have. But here, in Noah's arms, with the morning sun warming her face and the taste of coffee on both their lips, Emily let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe she was wrong. Maybe she could have this. Maybe she deserved it. The thought was so foreign, so fragile, that Emily almost couldn't hold on to it. But Noah was there, solid and real, and refusing to let go. And for the first time in years, Emily didn't feel the urge to run. She felt the urge to stay. Meeting Lily that afternoon changed everything. Noah picked Emily up at noon, and she spent the entire drive to his house second-guessing her outfit. Jeans and a casual sweater, nothing too formal but not sloppy either, and rehearsing conversation starters in her head. What did you even say to a 7-year-old? Emily dealt with pediatric patients all the time, but that was different. She was in charge then, the professional with answers. This felt infinitely more precarious. You're nervous, Noah observed, glancing over at her from the driver's seat. Is it that obvious? You've been picking at your nail polish for the last 5 minutes. He reached over and squeezed her hand. Relax, Lily's going to love you. You don't know that. I do, actually. She's been asking about you all week. Emily's head whipped toward him. You told her about me? Of course I did. I don't keep secrets from her. Noah navigated through a quiet residential neighborhood, all neat lawns and bicycles abandoned in driveways. She wanted to know where I was going on my fancy dates. So I told her I met someone special. And what did she say? Noah smiled. She asked if you like building things. Building things? It's her current obsession. Everything is construction projects and tools right now. Last week she took apart the toaster to see how it worked. Did she get it back together? Eventually, with my help and several YouTube videos. He pulled into a driveway in front of a modest single-story house with blue shutters and a small front porch. Fair warning, she's probably watching from the window right now. He was right. As soon as they stepped out of the truck, the front door flew open and a small tornado of energy came barreling out. Lily was all long limbs and wild curls, wearing overalls covered in what looked like paint stains, and carrying what appeared to be a partially assembled robot made of cardboard and duct tape. "You're Emily," she announced, skidding to a stop in front of them. "Dad said you save people's lives. Is that true? Do you use those electric paddle things? Have you ever seen anyone's actual heart? Can you—" "Lily, breathe," Noah said, but he was laughing. "Give Emily a chance to actually get inside before you interrogate her." Lily looked up at Emily with eyes that were carbon copies of her father's, warm and brown and completely guileless. "Sorry, Dad says I ask too many questions, but I really want to know about the electric paddle things." Emily found herself smiling despite her nerves. "The defibrillator? Yeah, I've used those. They're pretty intense." "Cool." Lily grabbed Emily's hand without hesitation, tugging her toward the house. "Come on, I want to show you my projects." "I'm building a robot that can pick up toys. Dad says it won't work, but I'm going to prove him wrong." Noah followed behind them, shaking his head with fond exasperation. "I said it wouldn't work yet. There's a difference." The inside of Noah's house was exactly what Emily expected, and somehow better. It was lived in and comfortable, with furniture that looked durable rather than decorative. Kids' artwork covered the refrigerator. A half-finished puzzle sat on the coffee table. Books were stacked everywhere. Children's chapter books mixed with electrical manuals, and what looked like a worn copy of a cookbook. It was a home, a real home, with all the beautiful mess that implied. Lily dragged Emily to her room, which was an explosion of creativity. Building blocks, art supplies, science kits, and partially completed projects covered every surface. A poster of the solar system hung above her bed next to one of different types of clouds. "This is my robot," Lily said, holding up her cardboard creation proudly. "See, these are the arms, and I'm going to put motors in them so they can grab things. And this part is where the battery goes. I just need to figure out the wiring." Emily crouched down to examine it more closely. "This is really impressive, Lily. Did you design it yourself?" "Uh-huh. Dad helped me with the measurements, but the idea was all mine." She pointed to various parts, explaining her vision with the kind of passionate detail that reminded Emily of herself when she talked about medicine. "The problem is, I can't figure out how to make the arms move the right way. They keep just flopping. Have you thought about using a different joint system? Maybe something that allows for more controlled movement?" Lily's eyes lit up. "Like what?" For the next 20 minutes, Emily found herself completely absorbed in helping Lily problem solve her robot's design. They drew sketches, tested different configurations, and debated the merits of various materials. Noah appeared in the doorway at some point, leaning against the frame with a soft expression that made Emily's heart flutter when she caught sight of him. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Nothing. Just, you're good with her." "She's easy to be good with. She's brilliant." "She gets that from her mom," Noah said quietly, and something flickered across his face. Not pain exactly, but something adjacent to it. Lily, oblivious to the shift in tone, grabbed Emily's hand again. "Are you staying for lunch? Dad ordered pizza. He always orders pizza when he doesn't want to cook." "I heard that," Noah called from the hallway. "You were supposed to," Lily yelled back, then looked at Emily conspiratorially. "He's actually a pretty good cook. He just pretends he's not, so we get pizza more often." They ate lunch on the living room floor, sitting cross-legged around the coffee table like it was completely normal for a grown woman to be having pizza with a man she'd been dating for less than a month and his precocious daughter. Lily asked approximately 1,000 questions about Emily's job, her apartment, whether she had any pets, what her favorite color was, and if she'd ever broken any bones. "Just my wrist," Emily said, holding up her left arm. "When I was about your age, actually, I fell off the monkey bars." "Did it hurt?" "Like crazy. But you know what? That's actually part of why I became a nurse. I remember the nurse who took care of me in the emergency room. She was so kind and gentle, and she explained everything that was happening, so I wasn't scared. I wanted to be like her." Lily considered this seriously. "So something bad happened, but it turned into something good?" "Exactly." "That's cool." Lily took another bite of pizza, cheese stretching in strings from the slice to her mouth. "Are you going to be Dad's girlfriend?" Emily nearly choked on her water. Noah looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "Lily," he started. "What?" "I'm just asking." Lily looked between them with complete innocence. "You hold hands, and Dad smiles at his phone a lot now. That's what people do when they have girlfriends. Sarah's dad has a girlfriend, and they hold hands all the time." Emily met Noah's eyes across the table, seeing her own mixture of embarrassment and amusement reflected back at her. "Well," she said carefully, "your dad and I really like each other. We're spending time together to see if we want to keep doing that." "That's a complicated way of saying yes," Lily observed. "Adults always make things complicated." Noah laughed, reaching over to ruffle his daughter's hair. "You're not wrong, kiddo." After lunch, Lily insisted on showing Emily her favorite cartoon, something involving magical creatures and adventure that Emily tried to follow, but mostly just enjoyed watching Lily's animated reactions to. The little girl kept up a running commentary, explaining character backstories and plot points with the kind of encyclopedic knowledge that only children seemed capable of. Halfway through the second episode, Lily climbed onto the couch between Emily and Noah, her head eventually finding its way onto Emily's shoulder. Emily froze, uncertain what to do, but Noah just smiled and mouthed, "She likes you." When Lily's breathing evened out into the soft rhythm of sleep, Noah carefully extracted her and carried her to her room. Emily waited on the couch, her shoulders still warm from where Lily's head had been, feeling something shift inside her chest. This was real. This wasn't just about her and Noah anymore. This was about this little girl who'd welcomed her so easily, who'd trusted her so quickly. It was terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. Noah returned a few minutes later, closing Lily's door quietly behind him. "She's out. Won't wake up for at least an hour." He sat down next to Emily, close enough that their shoulders touched. "So, that happened." "She's amazing," Emily said softly. "Noah, she's just incredible." "She is." Pride filled his voice. "And she clearly adores you already. I was worried it might be awkward, but she just took to you." "The feeling's mutual." Emily turned to face him. "Thank you for letting me into this part of your life. I know it's not easy, introducing someone to your daughter. It would be harder if I wasn't completely sure about you." Noah's hand found hers, their fingers interlacing automatically now. "Emily, I meant what I said this morning about falling in love with you. I'm already halfway there." Emily's breath caught. "Noah, you don't have to say it back. I just need you to know where I stand." He brought their joined hands up, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "I know you're scared. I know you think your job makes you too complicated or too much or whatever story you've been telling yourself. But I'm telling you, I see all of it, and I'm not going anywhere." "You can't promise that. You don't know what it's really like. The late nights, the canceled plans, the times when I'm so exhausted I can barely function." "Emily," Noah's voice was gentle but firm, "I'm a single dad running my own business. You think I don't understand unpredictable schedules? Last month I had to bring Lily to a job site at 11 at night because my sister couldn't watch her and I had an emergency call. She fell asleep in my truck while I rewired someone's electrical panel. This is my life. Chaos is normal for me." "It's not the same. Stop." He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Stop telling me what I can't handle. Stop deciding for me what I should feel. I'm a grown man, Emily. I know what I want, and what I want is you, all of you, the parts that save lives and the parts that forget to eat lunch, the parts that are strong and the parts that are scared. I want every single piece." Tears were streaming down Emily's face now, and she didn't even care. "I don't know how to let someone do that.
Then let me teach you. Noah's thumbs brushed away her tears. Let me show you what it looks like when someone chooses you, exactly as you are. Emily kissed him then, pouring 3 years of loneliness and fear and desperate hope into it. Noah kissed her back like she was something precious, something worth keeping. And Emily felt the last of her carefully constructed walls begin to crumble. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Noah rested his forehead against hers. "Stay for dinner," he murmured. "Stay tonight."
Not like that. I mean, unless you want to, but I just meant... Emily laughed through her tears. "I know what you meant, and yes, I'll stay." They spent the rest of the afternoon in comfortable domesticity. When Lily woke up, they made dinner together, actual cooking this time, Noah proving that Lily had been right about his abilities. Emily chopped vegetables while Noah handled the pasta, and Lily set the table with elaborate care, folding napkins into shapes she'd apparently learned from a YouTube video. Dinner was chaotic and perfect. Lily told stories about school, about her best friend Sarah, who apparently had 2 moms and the coolest lunchbox ever, about the science fair project she was planning that involved volcanoes and lots of explosion. Noah and Emily traded glances over her head, a whole conversation happening in those looks that didn't need words. After dinner, they built the promised blanket fort in the living room, draping sheets over furniture and securing them with books and couch cushions until they'd created an elaborate cave-like structure. They sat inside with flashlights, Lily in the middle, reading stories until she started yawning. "Time for bed, kiddo," Noah said, but Lily shook her head stubbornly. "Not yet. 5 more minutes." "You said that 20 minutes ago. This time I mean it." Emily watched them negotiate, seeing the easy affection between father and daughter, the way Noah was firm but gentle, the way Lily pushed back but ultimately trusted him. This was what a family looked like. This was what she'd never let herself imagine having. Eventually, Noah carried a half-asleep Lily to bed while Emily cleaned up the blanket fort. She could hear him in the bedroom, the low murmur of his voice reading one last story, Lily's sleepy questions, the soft sound of their good-night routine. When he emerged, clicking the door shut behind him, he looked exhausted and content. "She wants you to come say goodnight," he said. "Really?" "Really. Fair warning, she might ask you to come back." Emily walked into Lily's room, which was lit only by a small nightlight shaped like a moon. Lily was tucked into bed, clutching a stuffed elephant, her eyes already heavy with sleep. "Hi," Emily said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Will you come back?" Lily asked, her words slightly slurred with exhaustion. "To visit, I mean. Not just today." Emily felt her throat tighten. "Would you like me to?" "Yeah, you're nice, and you're good at building stuff, and Dad smiles a lot when you're here." Lily yawned hugely. "He doesn't smile like that very much." "I'd love to come back," Emily said honestly, "if that's okay with you." "It's okay with me." Lily's eyes drifted closed, then opened again with effort. "Emily?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad Dad found you." Emily had to blink back tears for the second time that day. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." She sat there for another minute, watching Lily's breathing even out into sleep, feeling the weight of responsibility and love and terror all tangled together in her chest. When she finally stood up and walked back to the living room, Noah was waiting on the couch, 2 glasses of wine poured. "She okay?" he asked as Emily sat down beside him. "Perfect." Emily accepted the wine, taking a long sip. "Noah, she's... I can't believe how easy that was. How natural. I told you she'd love you. It's not that. It's..." Emily struggled to find words. "I've spent so long convinced that I couldn't have this. That my job, my life, it didn't leave room for anything else. But watching you 2 tonight, being part of it, even just for a few hours, I want this. I want this so badly it scares me." Noah set down his wine and pulled her close, tucking her against his side. "So be scared. I'm scared too. Scared I'll mess this up. Scared you'll realize I'm not worth the trouble. Scared that..." "Stop," Emily interrupted. "You're worth the trouble. You're worth everything." They sat in silence for a while, wrapped around each other, the house quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional creak of settling wood.
Emily let herself imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like if this was her life. Coming home to this house, having dinner with Noah and Lily, being part of something bigger than herself. "I should go," she said eventually, even though everything in her wanted to stay. "I have an early shift tomorrow." "Yeah." Noah didn't sound any happier about it than she felt. "I'll drive you home." "You don't have to." "I'm driving you home, Emily. It's late." The drive back to her apartment was quiet but comfortable. When Noah pulled up outside her building, he turned to her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Thank you," he said, "for today, for being so good with Lily, for giving us, a chance. Thank you for trusting me with her. I know that wasn't easy." "It was the easiest thing I've ever done." Noah leaned across the console to kiss her, soft and sweet and full of promise. "Text me when you're safely inside." "You're going to wait?" "Of course I am." Emily climbed out of the truck on shaky legs, her whole world feeling tilted on its axis. She waved from her doorway, saw Noah wave back, and only then heard him drive away. Inside her apartment, she leaned against the closed door and let out a long, shaky breath. Her phone buzzed. Noah's name lit up the screen. "Today was perfect. Lily's already asking when you can come back. I told her I'd ask you." "So, when can you come back?" Emily typed with trembling fingers. "Whenever you'll have me." "Tomorrow too soon?" "I work until 8. Dinner at my place at 9? I promise not to feed you pizza twice in a row." "You've got yourself a deal." She fell asleep that night with a smile on her face and hope blooming warm and dangerous in her chest. The next few weeks settled into a pattern that felt almost too good to be real. Emily worked her shifts, saved lives, came home exhausted, and fell into Noah's world like she'd always belonged there. Sometimes it was just the two of them, late dinners and long conversations that stretched past midnight. Other times Lily was there, and Emily found herself learning the rhythms of their household, the routines and rituals that made them a family. She learned that Lily refused to eat anything green except pickles, that Noah had terrible taste in movies but somehow always made her laugh anyway, that Sunday mornings were for pancakes with chocolate chips, that both of them talked in their sleep. She learned what it felt like to be chosen, not despite her job, but including it. Noah never complained when she had to cancel plans. He just rescheduled. Never made her feel guilty for working late. He just showed up when she got off shift with takeout and a patient smile. And slowly, carefully, Emily started to believe that maybe this could actually work, that maybe she could have both the career she loved and the relationship she'd always wanted, that maybe she didn't have to choose. It was the best 6 weeks of her entire life, which is exactly when everything fell apart. The offer came on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered by her charge nurse with a congratulatory smile that made Emily's stomach drop. "Charge nurse position," Martha said, handing her the official letter. "Starting next month, 20% pay increase, benefits package, the works." "Emily, this is huge. You've earned this." Emily stared at the letter, the words blurring together. Charge nurse. It was everything she'd been working toward for years. More responsibility, better pay, the respect of her colleagues, a clear path forward in her career. It also meant longer hours, more stress, nights and weekends on call, less predictability in her already unpredictable schedule. "I need to think about it," Emily heard herself say. Martha's eyebrows rose. "Think about it? Emily, people wait years for an opportunity like this. You're 32. If you turn this down, it might not come around again." "I know. I need a few days." But thinking about it only made it worse. Because Emily knew, she knew what accepting this position would mean. It would mean less time with Noah, less time with Lily, more canceled dinners, missed weekends, apologies for things beyond her control. She remembered Mark's face when she'd refused to compromise her career. Remembered her mother's disappointed sighs every time Emily chose work over family gatherings. Remembered every person who'd ever told her she was too much, too dedicated, too consumed by her job to make room for anything else. And now here she was, finally having found someone who seemed to accept her exactly as she was, facing the exact same impossible choice all over again. Emily didn't tell Noah about the offer. Not at first.
She told herself she was waiting until she'd made a decision, but really, she was terrified of what she'd see in his eyes when she explained. The moment when acceptance turned to resignation, when "it's okay" became "it's too much." She made it 3 days before the secret started eating her alive. They were at Noah's house, a normal Wednesday evening that had become precious in its ordinariness. Lily was at soccer practice with Noah's sister, giving them a rare hour alone. They were cooking dinner together, moving around the kitchen in a dance they'd perfected over weeks of practice, when Noah asked the question Emily had been dreading. "You've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" Emily's hand stilled on the vegetables she'd been chopping. "Yeah, just tired." "Emily." Noah turned off the stove and turned to face her fully. "Talk to me. What's going on?" She could have lied. Should have lied, maybe, until she'd figured out what she wanted. But looking at Noah's concerned face, those steady brown eyes that had never once judged her, Emily felt something break open inside her chest. "They offered me a promotion," she said quietly. "Charge nurse. It's a really big deal." "That's amazing." Noah's face lit up with genuine pride. "Emily, that's incredible. You must be—" He stopped, reading her expression. "Why don't you look happy about it?" "Because it means more hours, more responsibility, less free time. I'd be on call more nights and weekends, dealing with staffing issues and administrative work on top of patient care." The words tumbled out in a rush. "It's everything I've worked for, and I should be thrilled, but all I can think about is how it's going to affect us. How I'll have even less time, how I'll have to cancel plans even more often, how eventually you're going to get tired of being second place to my career." "Whoa, stop." Noah crossed the kitchen in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders gently. "Emily, breathe. Why would you think I'd be tired of you pursuing your career?" "Because everyone else has been." The admission burst out of her like a confession. "Mark gave me an ultimatum. My parents stopped inviting me to things because I canceled so often. Every person I've ever dated has eventually decided I was too much work. And this promotion? Noah, it's only going to get worse. I'll be even less available, even more consumed by work. How long before you decide it's not worth it? How long before Lily starts asking why I'm never around?" Noah's expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, concern, and finally something that looked almost like anger. "You think that little of me? Of us?" "It's not about—" "No, clearly it is." His hands dropped from her shoulders. "You've already decided how this is going to play out. You've already written the ending where I walk away." "I'm just being realistic." "You're being a coward." The word hit Emily like a slap. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Noah's voice was harder than she'd ever heard it. "You're so convinced you're going to be disappointed that you're not even giving me a chance to prove otherwise. You're looking for an excuse to run." "That's not fair, isn't it?" Noah ran his hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "Emily, I have been nothing but supportive of your career. I've never once complained about your hours, never made you feel guilty for cancellations, never asked you to choose between me and your job. And the first real test we face, you assume I'm going to bail? You don't even tell me about the promotion for 3 days because you're already planning your exit strategy?" Emily felt tears burning behind her eyes. "I'm trying to protect you." "I don't need protection. I need trust." Noah's voice cracked slightly. "I need you to believe me when I say I'm here for the long haul. But you can't do that, can you? Because you've already decided how this story ends." The silence that followed was devastating. Emily stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, while Noah stared at her like she was a stranger. "I should go," Emily whispered. "Yeah," Noah said, his voice hollow. "Maybe you should." Emily grabbed her purse and walked to the door on numb legs. Part of her waited for Noah to call her back, to stop her, to fight for them. But he didn't. The door closed behind her with a quiet click that sounded like an ending. She made it to her car before the sobs hit. Emily drove home through blurred vision, her hands shaking so badly she had to pull over twice just to breathe. The word coward kept echoing in her head, bouncing around her skull like an accusation she couldn't escape. Was that what she was? Had she really been looking for an excuse to run? No, she'd been trying to protect him. Protect Lily. protect herself from the inevitable moment when Noah realized she was too much work and walked away. She'd seen it happen before. She knew how this story ended. Except Noah was right about one thing. She hadn't given him a chance to respond, hadn't trusted him enough to even have the conversation. She'd spent 3 days catastrophizing in silence, writing a script for him that he'd never agreed to perform. Emily made it inside her apartment and collapsed on the couch, still in her jacket, phone clutched in her hand. She wanted to call him, wanted to text him, wanted to drive back to his house and take back everything she'd said. But what would she even say? "I'm sorry I don't trust you," didn't exactly inspire confidence. Her phone buzzed. For one wild moment, Emily thought it might be Noah, but it was Martha, her charge nurse. "Hey Emily, just checking in. Have you made a decision about the position? Administration needs an answer by Friday." Friday, 2 days away. Emily stared at the message until the screen went dark, then let the phone drop onto the cushion beside her. She'd worked so hard to get here. Years of double shifts and night classes, of proving herself over and over again to colleagues who dismissed her because she was young, because she was a woman, because she cared too much. The charge nurse position represented everything she'd sacrificed for. Recognition, authority, the ability to make real changes in how the ER operated. But the image that kept flooding her mind wasn't of herself in a leadership role. It was Lily's face, asking when Emily would come back. It was Noah's hands, steady and sure as they pulled her close. It was Sunday morning pancakes and blanket forts and the feeling of finally belonging somewhere. Emily fell asleep on the couch that night, still fully dressed, and dreamed of paths splitting in front of her. No matter which one she chose, something precious got left behind. The next day at work was brutal. Emily went through the motions mechanically, treating patients with her usual competence, but none of her usual warmth. She could feel her colleagues noticing, could see the concerned glances they traded when they thought she wasn't looking. "You okay?" her friend Jessica asked during a rare quiet moment. "You seem off." "Fine," Emily lied, "just tired." "This about the promotion? Because you should be celebrating, not moping." "I haven't accepted it yet." Jessica's eyes widened. "Are you insane? Emily, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. What's there to think about?" "It's complicated." "Let me guess. Man trouble?" When Emily didn't respond, Jessica shook her head. "Don't tell me you're actually considering turning down this promotion because of some guy." "It's not some guy," Emily said sharply, "and it's not that simple." "It really is, though. Listen, I get it. New relationship, everything feels intense and important. But Emily, relationships end. Careers last. You turn down this promotion for him, and 6 months from now, when he's gone, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life." The words landed like stones in Emily's chest because they echoed every fear she'd been carrying. Jessica meant well. She was speaking from experience, having turned down a job opportunity for a boyfriend years ago only to have the relationship implode 3 months later. But hearing it said out loud made something crystallize in Emily's mind. This was the story she'd been telling herself her whole adult life. That love was temporary. That career was permanent. That investing in relationships was a fool's game because they always ended in disappointment. But what if she was wrong? What if the real fool's game was protecting herself so completely that she never let anyone close enough to prove her wrong? Emily's shift ended at 8, and she walked to her car in a fog of indecision. She should go home, should eat something, should make a decision about the promotion that wasn't based on fear or hope or any emotion at all, but on cold, rational calculation of what was best for her future. Instead, she found herself driving to Noah's house. The porch light was on, warm and welcoming against the darkness. Emily sat in her car for 10 minutes, working up the courage to knock. What if he didn't want to see her? What if he'd already decided she was too much trouble, too damaged, too scared to be worth the effort? But she'd been a coward once. She wasn't going to be one again. The doorbell's chime sounded too loud in the quiet night. Emily heard footsteps, saw the porch light brighten as someone looked through the peephole. Then the door swung open, and Noah stood there in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, his hair messy like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked exhausted. He looked beautiful. "Emily," he said, and his voice was carefully neutral. "What are you doing here?" "I came to apologize." The words rushed out before she could stop them. "You were right. About everything. I was being a coward. I was looking for an excuse to run because that's what I do when things get scary. But Noah, I don't want to run anymore." He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, but his expression had softened slightly. "What do you want?" "I want to tell you about the promotion. Really tell you, not just panic at you." Emily took a shaky breath. "It's an incredible opportunity. More money, more responsibility, a real leadership position. It's everything I've worked toward for years." "Okay, but it also means longer hours, more unpredictability. I'd be on call most weekends. Administrative work on top of patient care. Staff meetings and budget reviews and all the bureaucratic nonsense I've always hated." She met his eyes. "It means even less free time than I have now, and I already barely have enough." Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped back, opening the door wider. "Come inside. We should talk about this properly." Emily followed him into the living room, her heart hammering. The house was quiet. Lily must already be asleep. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, a careful distance between them that felt like a canyon. "I need to ask you something," Noah said finally, "and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay. Do you want this promotion?" Emily opened her mouth to give him the answer she thought he wanted to hear, then stopped herself. Honesty. He'd asked for honesty. "Yes," she said quietly. "I want it so badly it scares me." "Then take it." "But what about Emily?" Noah shifted closer, his hand reaching out to cover hers. "Take the promotion. Chase your career. Be the incredible, dedicated, brilliant nurse I know you are. None of that changes how I feel about you. You say that now. I say that now, and I'll say it 6 months from now and 6 years from now." His grip tightened. "But I need you to hear something, and I need you to really listen. Are you listening?" Emily nodded, tears already forming. "I didn't fall in love with a woman who had a convenient schedule. I fell in love with a woman who saves lives, a woman who shows up for her patients even when she's exhausted, a woman who cares so much it literally keeps her up at night." He cupped her face with his free hand, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. "That woman, the one in scrubs at 2 in the morning, the one who misses dinner because someone needed her, the one who carries the weight of the world on her shoulders. That's who I love. And a promotion doesn't change that. It just means you get to save more lives, help more people, make an even bigger difference." "But what about us?" Emily's voice cracked. "What about Lily? What happens when I have to cancel plans over and over, when I'm never around for the important things? When you both finally realize I'm not worth the trouble?" "Stop." Noah's voice was firm but gentle. "Stop deciding what we're capable of handling. Stop writing us off before we've even had a chance to try. Yes, your schedule is going to be difficult. Yes, we'll have to be flexible. Yes, there will be times when it's hard. But, Emily, hard doesn't mean impossible, and you are absolutely worth the trouble." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know what matters. And what matters is that we love each other. Everything else? We figure it out as we go." He pulled her closer until their foreheads were touching. "I'm not your ex. I'm not the people who made you feel like you had to choose. I'm the guy who's choosing you every day, exactly as you are. But you have to let me. You have to trust me enough to let me show up for you." Emily broke then, completely and utterly. She sobbed against Noah's chest while he held her, years of fear and loneliness and desperate hope pouring out in great gasping waves. He didn't try to shush her or tell her it was okay. He just held her, steady and solid, until the storm passed. "I'm terrified," Emily whispered when she could finally speak again. "I'm so scared of losing this, of losing you." "I know. I'm scared too." Noah pressed a kiss to her temple. "But we can be scared together. That's allowed." They sat in silence for a while, wrapped around each other, the weight of the conversation settling between them. Finally, Emily pulled back enough to look at him. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "How to balance everything, how to be a good partner when I'm barely keeping my head above water as it is." "You know what? Neither do I. I'm making this up as I go." Noah smiled softly. But here's what I do know. We communicate. When things are hard, we talk about it instead of letting it fester. When schedules get crazy, we find the moments we can instead of mourning the ones we can't. When you need space to focus on work, you tell me, and I give it to you without resentment. When I need help with Lily, I ask, and you show up if you can, or you don't, if you can't. We build something flexible enough to handle both our lives. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, but it's not impossible either. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Emily, relationships aren't about perfect balance. They're about two people who care enough to keep showing up, even when it's messy. And I'm showing up every day, for as long as you'll let me. Emily felt something shift inside her chest, like a lock finally clicking open. I love you, she said, the words tumbling out unbidden. I'm completely terrified and probably going to mess this up, but I love you. I think I have since that first date when you ordered me water and asked when I'd last eaten. Noah's smile was radiant. I love you too, since the cafeteria, if I'm being honest. When you were apologizing for spilling my coffee and shaking from exhaustion, and still somehow the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. He kissed her then, deep and slow, and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Emily felt lighter than she had in days. The fear was still there, probably always would be, but it wasn't paralyzing anymore. It was just part of the package, something they'd navigate together. I'm taking the promotion, Emily said decisively. And we're going to figure this out, together. Together, Noah agreed. But first, you need to eat. Have you had dinner? I had a granola bar at work. Emily Rhodes, what am I going to do with you? Noah stood up, pulling her with him toward the kitchen. Come on, I'm making you actual food. And then we're going to sit down with a calendar and figure out how to make this work logistically. Because if we're doing this, we're doing it right. They spent the next hour eating leftover pasta and mapping out what the next few months might look like. Noah had a big commercial project starting in 2 weeks that would mean early mornings and long days. Emily's new position would officially begin at the start of the month, with a training period that would be particularly intense. They marked out the weeks that would be hardest, the times when they'd need to lean on family and friends, the moments they'd have to steal for themselves. It wasn't perfect. There were going to be conflicts, times when neither of them could be flexible, moments of frustration and disappointment. But looking at the calendar spread out between them, Emily realized something profound. Noah wasn't trying to minimize her career or fit her into a convenient box. He was actually genuinely trying to build a life that had room for both of them to thrive. What about Lily? Emily asked quietly. How do we explain this to her? Noah considered for a moment. We tell her the truth, that you have an important job that helps people, and sometimes that means you can't be here as much as we'd like. But when you are here, you're really here, present and engaged. Kids understand more than we give them credit for. What if she resents me? What if she feels like I'm choosing work over her? Then we deal with it. We talk about feelings. We reassure her. We make sure she knows she's important to both of us. Noah reached across the table to take Emily's hand. But Emily, you can't parent from a place of guilt, and you can't let fear of disappointing her stop you from being who you are. Lily needs to see that women can be ambitious and loving, that having a career doesn't make you a bad person or a bad partner. You're going to teach her that by example. The words settled over Emily like a revelation. She'd spent so long thinking about what she might take away from Lily, time, attention, stability, that she hadn't considered what she might give. A model of a woman who didn't shrink herself to fit others' expectations, who pursued her calling without apology, who showed up imperfectly but authentically. You're really okay with this, Emily said wonderingly. You're actually genuinely okay with all of it. I'm better than okay. I'm proud of you. Noah squeezed her hand, and I'm honored that you trust me enough to build this life with me. They talked until nearly midnight, until Emily was yawning so hard she could barely keep her eyes open. Noah walked her to the door, pulling her into his arms for one last kiss. Text me tomorrow after you tell them yes, he murmured against her hair. I want to celebrate properly. I will, Emily promised. And Noah, thank you for not giving up on me, for calling me out when I needed it, for just everything. That's what you do when you love someone. You show up. You push back when they're being their own worst enemy. You believe in them even when they can't believe in themselves. He kissed her forehead. Now go home and get some sleep. You've got a big day tomorrow. Emily drove home feeling like a different person than the one who'd made this same drive the night before. The fear was still there, but it was manageable now. Contained. Because Noah was right. She didn't have to face it alone anymore. The next morning, Emily walked into Martha's office with her decision. "I'll take it," she said without preamble. "The charge nurse position. I accept." Martha's face split into a huge grin. "Emily, that's wonderful. You're not going to regret this, I promise. When can you start the transition?" They spent the next hour going over details, training schedules, new responsibilities, the logistics of stepping into a leadership role. Emily's head was spinning by the time she left the office, but it was a good kind of spinning, the kind that came from possibility rather than panic. She texted Noah during her lunch break, just a simple "I said yes," followed by a heart emoji. His response was immediate. "Proud of you. Dinner tonight? My place. 8 p.m. I'm cooking for real this time." But the universe, as always, had other plans. Emily's shift was supposed to end at 6. It was a Friday, and she'd been looking forward to having the whole weekend to celebrate, to maybe take Noah and Lily somewhere fun, to start this new chapter on a high note. Then the emergency call came through at 5:45. Multi-car accident on I-35. Multiple casualties incoming, all hands on deck. Emily saw her phone lighting up with Noah's texts asking if she was still on for dinner, sending her a picture of Lily helping in the kitchen, letting her know what time to arrive. She typed out a quick response between patients. "Emergency, multi-car pileup, don't know when I'll be done. I'm so sorry." His reply came 30 seconds later. "Don't apologize. Save lives. We'll be here when you're done." But 6 o'clock came and went. 7, 8, 9. The ER was chaos. 3 critical patients, 1 coding on the table, families screaming for information they didn't have yet. Emily was in the thick of it, running on pure adrenaline and muscle memory, her new title forgotten in the face of immediate need. At 9:47, her phone buzzed again. She couldn't check it, elbow deep in chest compressions, calling out orders to the team around her. At 10:15, they lost the patient. A 19-year-old kid who'd been driving home from college for the weekend. Emily stood there with his blood on her scrubs, staring at the flat line on the monitor, feeling the familiar weight of failure settle over her shoulders. She checked her phone at 10:30, expecting to see angry messages or disappointed silence. Instead, there was a single text from Noah. "Still here when you're ready, no rush, take care of yourself." Emily felt something crack open in her chest. She'd canceled their celebration dinner, had missed the entire evening, was standing in the ER looking like she'd been through a war. And Noah wasn't angry, wasn't disappointed, was just there, waiting. She finished her shift in a daze, changed out of her bloody scrubs, and walked to her car at 11:30. She should go home, should shower and sleep and deal with everything tomorrow. But her hands were shaking, and she could still see that kid's face, and she didn't want to be alone. She drove to Noah's house without consciously deciding to. The porch light was still on. When she knocked, so softly she was sure he wouldn't hear, the door opened within seconds. Noah stood there in pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair rumpled from where he'd clearly been lying down. He took one look at Emily's face and pulled her inside without a word. "Lily?" Emily whispered. "Asleep. Has been since 8. He guided her to the couch, settling her down gently. "What do you need?" "I don't know." Emily's voice came out broken. "We lost someone tonight. A kid. 19 years old. We did everything right, and it still wasn't enough." Noah pulled her close, and Emily finally let herself fall apart. Not the pretty cathartic crying from before, but the ugly, gut-wrenching sobs that came from watching someone die despite your best efforts. Noah held her through all of it, one hand running through her hair, the other pressed firmly against her back, an anchor keeping her tethered. "I ruined our celebration," Emily said when she could finally speak again. "Your dinner, the whole evening." "Stop." Noah's voice was gentle but firm. "You didn't ruin anything. You were doing your job, saving the people you could save. But I should have been here. Emily, look at me."
He waited until she met his eyes. This is what I signed up for. This right here. You, exhausted and heartbroken because you care so much. You, missing dinner because someone needed you more. This isn't the exception. This is going to be our life sometimes, and I'm okay with that. More than okay. How can you be? Because this is who you are, and I love who you are. He brushed a tear from her cheek. Do you want to talk about it? The patient? So Emily told him about the 19-year-old kid named Marcus who'd been texting his mom when he crashed, about the desperate minutes trying to restart his heart, about the moment she had had to call time of death and then walk out to tell his parents their son was gone. She told him everything, the words pouring out in a cathartic rush, and Noah listened without judgment or platitudes. He just held her and let her process. When she finally fell silent, wrung out and empty, Noah kissed her forehead. You did everything you could. Sometimes that's not enough, and that's not your fault. It feels like my fault. I know, but it's not. He stood up, pulling her with him. Come on, you need sleep. You can take my bed. I'll crash on the couch. No, I can't take your bed. You can, and you will. No arguments. He led her to his bedroom, found her one of his t-shirts to sleep in, and left her alone to change. Emily looked around the room, at the pictures of Lily on the dresser, the electrical manuals stacked on the nightstand, the worn quilt that probably came from Noah's childhood. This was his private space, and he was giving it to her without hesitation. She climbed into bed, and the sheets smelled like him, woodsy and clean and safe. Within seconds, exhaustion dragged her under. Emily woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the sound of laughter from somewhere in the house. For a moment she was disoriented, unsure where she was. Then memory flooded back. Marcus, the failed code, driving to Noah's, falling apart in his arms. She checked her phone. 9:47 a.m. She'd slept for almost 10 hours. Emily made her way to the bathroom, splashing water on her face and finger-combing her hair into something resembling order. She still looked like hell, eyes swollen from crying, face pale with exhaustion, but there wasn't much she could do about it. The laughter was coming from the kitchen. Emily followed the sound and found Noah and Lily making pancakes, or at least attempting to. There was batter everywhere, on the counter, on the floor, somehow on the ceiling. Lily was standing on a stool, carefully pouring chocolate chips into the bowl, while Noah tried and failed to clean up the mess. They both looked up when Emily appeared in the doorway. Emily! Lily's face lit up. You're here! Did you sleep over? Dad said you had a really hard night at work. I did, Emily confirmed, her throat tight with emotion. Your dad was very nice and let me stay. Are you okay now? Dad says sometimes when you have a bad day, you just need pancakes and someone to be nice to you. Emily met Noah's eyes over Lily's head, and what she saw there, understanding, acceptance, love, nearly broke her all over again. I think your dad might be right about that. Good, because we're making chocolate chip pancakes. They're kind of a disaster, but they'll taste good anyway. Lily held up the bowl proudly. Want to help? And just like that, Emily found herself in the kitchen, covered in pancake batter, laughing as Lily tried to flip a pancake and sent it flying across the room instead. Noah caught it with a spatula, declaring it still edible. They ate breakfast at the kitchen table, syrup dripping everywhere. Lily chattering about her week at school, while Noah and Emily traded glances that said more than words ever could. This was it. This was what she'd been so terrified of losing, so convinced she couldn't have. Not perfection, but presence. Not a fairy tale, but something real and messy and beautiful. After breakfast, Lily went to play in her room, leaving Noah and Emily alone with the breakfast dishes. They washed in comfortable silence, and Emily found herself thinking about all the small moments that had led here, all the times she'd been sure this would fall apart, all the ways Noah had proved her wrong. Thank you, she said quietly, handing him a plate to dry. For last night, for not being angry, for just letting me fall apart. Emily, you don't have to thank me for loving you. I kind of do, though, because I'm still learning how to let you. She turned to face him, her wet hands dripping onto the floor. I spent so long convinced I had to do everything alone, that needing someone made me weak, that letting someone see me broken would make them leave. But you keep staying, even when I'm a mess, Even when I ruin plans and show up crying at midnight, you just stay. That's what love is, Noah said simply. Staying through the hard parts, showing up even when it's inconvenient, choosing each other over and over, even when it would be easier to walk away. Emily kissed him then, there in the kitchen with dish soap on their hands and pancake batter still drying on the counter. It wasn't dramatic or passionate. It was soft and sweet and full of gratitude for this man who'd somehow seen past all her defenses to the terrified woman underneath. When they broke apart, Noah rested his forehead against hers. So, about that celebration dinner we missed? I'm working tonight, Emily admitted. 7 to 7, but tomorrow is Sunday, pancake day, Noah smiled. How about this? You come over whenever you're done tomorrow, and we'll make a proper celebration. Lily and I will cook something impressive, or we'll order something impressive. Either way, we're celebrating your promotion. Deal? Deal. Emily left Noah's house that afternoon feeling steadier than she had in weeks. She worked her shift that night, came home and slept, then drove back to Noah's on Sunday afternoon with flowers for Lily and wine for Noah and a heart so full it felt like it might burst. They celebrated with takeout Thai food and too much laughter and Lily's insistence that they all sign a contract promising to always have pancakes on Sundays. Noah framed it and hung it on the refrigerator right next to Lily's artwork and the grocery list. It was perfect. It was messy. It was real. And for the first time in her life, Emily stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. She stopped bracing for disappointment. She stopped planning her exit strategy. She just let herself be loved. For 3 weeks, Emily lived in what felt like a dream. She started her new position as charge nurse, navigating the steep learning curve with Noah's steady encouragement via text throughout the day. The hours were brutal, just as she'd anticipated, but somehow it felt manageable knowing that Noah was there when she had time, patient when she didn't. Until the night everything Emily had been afraid of finally happened. It was a Wednesday, and Emily had actually promised, that she'd be at Lily's school play. The little girl had been cast as a talking tree in some elaborate environmental production, and she'd been practicing her 3 lines for weeks. Emily had marked it on her calendar in red ink, had requested the evening off 2 weeks in advance, had reassured Lily at least a dozen times that yes, she would absolutely be there. At 5:30 p.m., Emily was changing out of her scrubs when her pager went off. Mass casualty incident. Building collapse downtown. All available personnel report immediately. Emily stared at the pager, her stomach dropping through the floor. The play started at 6. Noah and Lily would already be at the school, saving her a seat. She could see Lily's excited face in her mind, scanning the audience for her. She looked at her phone, looked at the pager, looked at the chaos erupting around her as the ER prepared for the influx of patients. There was no choice. There had never been a choice. Emily called Noah with shaking hands. He answered on the second ring, and she could hear the ambient noise of the school auditorium in the background. Parents chatting, kids laughing, the general buzz of anticipation. "Hey, you close?" Noah asked cheerfully. "Lily's been asking every 2 minutes when you'll be here." "Noah, Emily's voice cracked. "There's been a building collapse. Mass casualty. I can't leave." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. "Noah? You promised her." His voice was flat, controlled in a way that was somehow worse than anger. "Emily, you looked my daughter in the eyes and promised you'd be there." "I know, and I'm so sorry, but there are people dying. But there are always people dying." The words came out sharp, and Emily heard Noah take a breath, clearly trying to rein himself in. "I'm sorry, that wasn't fair. But Emily, Lily has been talking about this for weeks. She told everyone at school that her dad's girlfriend was coming to watch her. She's 7 years old and she's counting on you." Emily felt tears burning behind her eyes. "Do you think I want to miss this? Do you think this is easy for me? I don't know what to think anymore." Noah's voice was heavy with something Emily couldn't quite name. "I said I could handle your schedule. I said I understood. But Emily, this isn't about me. This is about a little girl who's going to spend the whole play looking for you in the audience and not finding you there. Please tell her I'm sorry. Please tell her I wanted to be there." "I'll tell her.
Noah sounded exhausted. I have to go. The play's starting soon. He hung up before Emily could say anything else. She stood there for a moment, phone in hand, torn between two impossible choices. Then a gurney crashed through the ER doors and training took over. Emily shoved her phone in her locker and ran to help. The next 6 hours were a blur of blood and pain and desperate attempts to save lives that were slipping away faster than they could grab them. Emily worked on autopilot, her hands steady, even as her heart was shattering. She kept seeing Lily's face, kept imagining her looking into the audience, searching, that excited smile fading into confusion and then hurt. At midnight, when the last patient was stabilized and the chaos had finally subsided, Emily checked her phone with trembling hands. Nothing from Noah. Nothing from Lily. She called. It went straight to voicemail. She texted, I'm so sorry. Please let me explain. Please. The message showed as delivered but not read. Emily drove home in numb silence, the adrenaline crash hitting her so hard she had to pull over twice because she couldn't see through her tears. This was it. This was the moment she'd been dreading since the beginning. The moment when Noah finally realized she was too much trouble, that her job would always take priority, that loving her meant constantly coming second. She'd ruined everything, just like she always did. Emily barely slept that night, checking her phone obsessively every few minutes. By morning, Noah still hadn't responded. She went to work in a daze, going through the motions of her job while her mind replayed the phone call over and over. You look like hell, Jessica commented during their lunch break. What happened? Emily told her everything, the building collapse, the missed play, Noah's tone on the phone, the silence that had followed. Jessica's expression was sympathetic but knowing. I hate to say I told you so, but please don't. Emily, this is what happens. You can't be everything to everyone. Something always has to give. She squeezed Emily's shoulder. Maybe it's for the best. Better to find out now than after you're even more invested. But Emily didn't want it to be for the best. She didn't want to be right about relationships being impossible. She wanted Noah's steady presence and Lily's infectious laughter and Sunday morning pancakes. She wanted the life they'd been building together, messy and imperfect as it was. She tried calling again during her break. Voicemail. She texted, please just let me know if you're okay. If Lily's okay, I'm worried. This time, Noah responded, we're fine. Lily did great in the play. She asked why you weren't there. I didn't know what to tell her. Emily's hands shook as she typed back, tell her the truth, that I had an emergency and I'm so sorry. Can I see you? Can we talk about this? The response took 5 minutes. I need some time to think. This isn't just about me anymore. I have to consider what's best for Lily. And there it was, the beginning of the end. Emily recognized it like an old, familiar song. This was how it started. The pulling away, the reconsideration, the slow realization that she wasn't worth the trouble. She'd seen it with Mark, with every relationship before him. They always started so sure, so confident they could handle her schedule, and they always ended the same way. 3 days passed in agonizing silence. Emily threw herself into work, taking extra shifts, volunteering for the cases no one else wanted. If she was going to lose Noah anyway, she might as well prove everyone right about her priorities. On the 4th day, Martha pulled her aside. Emily, I'm concerned about you. You've worked 70 hours this week, and it's only Thursday. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're avoiding something. Martha's expression softened. Is this about the guy? Noah? Emily felt her carefully constructed composure crack. I ruined it, just like I ruin everything. What happened? So Emily told her boss, her mentor, the whole story. Martha listened without interrupting, her expression growing more thoughtful as Emily spoke. Can I tell you something? Martha said when Emily finished. I've been doing this job for 30 years. I've seen a lot of nurses burn out, quit, or sacrifice their personal lives completely. You want to know what they all have in common? Emily nodded, not trusting her voice. They never learned how to let people help them carry the weight. They thought they had to choose between being a good nurse and having a life outside these walls. Martha leaned forward. Emily, you're an incredible nurse, possibly the best I've ever worked with. But if you burn yourself out trying to be everywhere at once, you won't be good to anyone. Not your patients, not Noah, not yourself. I don't know how to be anything other than all in, Emily whispered.
Medicine is who I am. No, it's what you do. Who you are is the woman who cares so much she makes herself sick over it. Who you are is someone who deserves to be loved and supported, not someone who has to earn it by being perfect. Martha squeezed her hand. Go home, Emily. Take the rest of the week off. Actually, take it off. Don't just work from home. Figure out what you really want, and then fight for it. Emily left the hospital at 2 p.m. for the first time in months. She went home, climbed into bed, and slept for 14 hours straight. When she woke up, it was Friday morning, and she had a clarity she hadn't felt in days. Martha was right, Jessica was wrong, and Emily had been so busy protecting herself from potential hurt that she'd created exactly the outcome she'd been trying to avoid. She'd promised Noah honesty, promised him she'd stop running.
And at the first real test, she'd retreated into her old patterns, convinced the ending was inevitable, so why bother fighting it? But Noah had asked for time to think. He hadn't ended things, hadn't said it was over. He just asked for space to process, which was completely reasonable given that his daughter had been hurt. Emily picked up her phone and typed carefully. I know you asked for time, and I'm respecting that, but I need you to know something. I was wrong. Not about missing the play. I genuinely had no choice, but I was wrong about how I handled it after. I retreated. I assumed you were done with me. I fell back into old patterns instead of trusting what we've built together. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for not fighting harder to talk to you. I'm sorry for making this about my fear instead of about Lily's feelings. Whenever you're ready to talk, I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. Not this time. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Then she got in her car and drove to Noah's house. It was mid-morning on a Friday, which meant Noah was probably at a job site, and Lily was at school. Emily didn't care. She parked outside his house and waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Emily sat in her car watching the neighborhood come to life around her. A mail carrier making rounds. A dog walker with 3 excited golden retrievers. A landscaping crew working on the yard across the street. At 11:30, Noah's truck pulled into the driveway. Emily's heart hammered as she watched him climb out, as he noticed her car, as his expression shifted from surprise to something more complicated. He walked over slowly, and Emily got out to meet him halfway. They stood there in his driveway, the morning sun harsh and unforgiving, and Emily could see the exhaustion in Noah's face, the strain around his eyes, the way he held himself carefully, like he was protecting something fragile. You're not at work, he said finally. I took the day off. The week, actually. Emily wrapped her arms around herself. I needed to see you. I know you asked for time, and I'll give you all the time you need, but I couldn't just sit around waiting and wondering. I had to tell you something face to face. Noah didn't respond, just waited. You were right to be angry, Emily said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I promised Lily I'd be there, and I broke that promise. I hate that I hurt her. I hate that I let her down. But Noah, I need you to understand. There was a building collapse. 17 people dead, 34 injured. I was in surgery helping save a woman who'd been trapped under concrete for 3 hours. I didn't have a choice. I know that. Noah's voice was rough. Logically, I know that. But Emily, when I had to look at my daughter's face and watch her search the audience for you, when I had to see her disappointment, he ran his hand through his hair. I started wondering if I was being fair to her, letting her get attached to someone who might not always be there. The words hit Emily like a physical blow. So that's it? You're ending this? You're deciding for both of us that it won't work? I don't know. Noah's honesty was devastating. I told you I could handle your schedule. I meant it. But this isn't just about me anymore. Lily's already been through so much. Her mom left when she was 4. I won't let her get hurt again. So you're protecting her by pushing me away? By teaching her that people who care about her will always leave eventually? Emily stepped closer, desperation making her bold. Noah, I messed up. I should have called her myself. Should have sent flowers or a card or something to let her know I was thinking about her, even though I couldn't be there. I should have tried harder to make it right instead of just apologizing to you. But I can learn from this. I can do better. How? The question wasn't accusatory, just tired. How do you do better when your job is always going to come first? My job doesn't come first, Emily said fiercely. Lives come first. And yes, sometimes that means I have to make impossible choices. Sometimes that means disappointing people I love. But Noah, you do the same thing. What happens when you get an emergency call at night? When someone's electricity goes out in winter and they have no heat? You go. Because it's the right thing to do. Because people need you. That's different. It's not different. Emily's voice rose, frustration and fear making her shake. It's the same thing. We both have jobs that require us to show up when we're needed, regardless of what else is happening in our lives. The only difference is that my emergencies are more visible, more dramatic, but the principle is the same. Noah was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working like he was chewing on her words. You're right, he said finally, about the emergency calls. I do drop everything when someone needs me. But Emily, this isn't about fairness or logic. This is about my daughter's heart, and I don't know if I can ask her to keep taking that risk. Then don't ask her. Ask me. Emily closed the distance between them, her hand reaching for his. He didn't pull away, which felt like a victory. Ask me if I'm committed to this. Ask me if I'm willing to fight for it. Ask me if I care about Lily enough to work harder at being there for her, even when it's difficult. Do you? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. I care about her so much it terrifies me. I think about her constantly. I worry about disappointing her. I want to be someone she can count on, someone who makes her life better, not harder. Emily's voice cracked. And I know I failed her this time. But Noah, if you give me another chance, I swear I'll do better. I'll call her directly when I have to miss something. I'll make sure she knows she's important to me, even when I can't physically be there. I'll find ways to show up that don't require me to be present every single time. How? How do you show up when you're not there? Emily had been thinking about this for days, lying awake at night, turning the problem over and over in her mind. Video calls during my breaks so she can tell me about her day. Care packages when I'm working long stretches. Making sure the time we do have together is quality, not just quantity. Teaching her that love isn't measured in hours spent together, but in the effort we make to stay connected. She squeezed his hand. And most importantly, never making promises I can't keep. If I tell her I'll be somewhere, I'll move heaven and earth to make it happen. And if something truly unavoidable comes up, I'll communicate early and honestly. Noah studied her face, and Emily felt like he was seeing straight through to her soul. What about you? He asked quietly. What happens when you stretch yourself so thin trying to be everything to everyone that you break? Then you catch me. The words came out barely above a whisper. That's what you've been trying to tell me all along, isn't it? That I don't have to do this alone. That letting you help isn't weakness, it's partnership. Emily, I'm terrified, she interrupted. I'm absolutely terrified of failing you both, of not being enough, of proving everyone right who said I can't balance my career and a relationship. But I'm more terrified of losing this, of losing you and Lily because I was too scared to fight for what we have. Noah pulled her into his arms then, and Emily collapsed against his chest, feeling the tension she'd been carrying for days finally release. He held her tightly, one hand cradling the back of her head, and Emily could feel his heart hammering against her cheek. I don't want to lose you either, Noah said roughly. I've been miserable these past few days, angry and confused and missing you so badly I could barely function. But Emily, I meant what I said. I have to think about Lily. I know. And you should. She comes first. She should come first. Emily pulled back just enough to look up at him. But doesn't she also deserve to see what it looks like when adults work through difficult things instead of just giving up? Doesn't she deserve to learn that relationships take effort and communication and forgiveness? A small smile tugged at the corner of Noah's mouth. When did you get so wise? About 10 hours of crying and one very stern talk from my boss ago. Emily managed a watery laugh. Noah, I can't promise I'll never disappoint her again. I can't promise my job won't interfere with plans. But I can promise I'll always care. I'll always try. And I'll always be honest with both of you about what I can and can't do.
Noah cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling.
I need you to talk to Lily. She needs to hear this from you, not from me.
Emily's stomach clenched with anxiety, but she nodded.
Okay, when? She gets home from school at 3:30. Can you be here?
Yes. No hesitation, no checking her schedule, just yes. Noah kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of relief.
We're going to have to figure out better communication systems, better ways to handle last-minute changes, better boundaries around promises.
Agreed. All of it. Whatever it takes. They went inside and Emily helped Noah make lunch while they talked through logistics. How to better prepare Lily for the unpredictability of Emily's schedule. How to create backup plans for important events. How to make sure everyone felt heard and valued, even when things went wrong. At 3:35, they heard the front door open and Lily's voice calling out, "Dad, I'm home!" Emily's heart started racing. Noah squeezed her hand once, then called back, "In the kitchen, kiddo. We have a visitor." Lily appeared in the doorway, still in her school uniform, backpack hanging off one shoulder. When she saw Emily, her face went through a complicated series of expressions: surprise, happiness, and then something that looked like hurt. "Hi, Lily," Emily said softly. "Hi." Lily's voice was small. She looked at her dad. "Did Emily come to say sorry?" Noah crouched down to Lily's level. "Yes. And I think you two need to talk. Is that okay?" Lily nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving Emily's face. Noah stood up, kissing the top of his daughter's head. "I'll be in the living room if you need me. Take your time." When he left, the kitchen felt enormous. Emily sat down at the table, and after a moment's hesitation, Lily climbed into the chair across from her, her legs swinging nervously. "I'm sorry I wasn't at your play," Emily started, but Lily interrupted. "Dad said you had an emergency, that people were hurt really bad and you had to help them." "That's true.
But Lily, I also made you a promise that I couldn't keep, and that's not okay, even if I had a good reason."
Lily picked at the edge of her placemat.
"I looked for you, in the audience. I kept thinking maybe you were just late, or maybe you were in the back where I couldn't see. But you weren't there."
The words broke Emily's heart. "I know, sweetheart, and I wish I could have been there. I wanted to be there. But the people who were hurt needed you more." It wasn't a question, just a flat statement of fact. "Yes, but that doesn't mean you weren't important. That doesn't mean I didn't care about your play." Emily leaned forward. "Lily, can I tell you something? Something really honest?" The little girl nodded. "My job is really important to me. I help people who are sick or hurt, and sometimes that means I have to work when I'd rather be doing other things, like watching you be a talking tree." That got a tiny smile. "But you're important to me too. So important that I've been really sad these past few days thinking I might have lost your trust. Are you and Dad going to break up?" Lily's voice was so small, so scared that Emily had to swallow hard before she could answer. "I hope not. I really, really hope not. But that kind of depends on you too." Lily's eyes widened. "On me?" "Yeah. Because I need to know, can you forgive me for missing your play? And can you trust me when I say I'll try really hard not to make promises I can't keep?" Lily thought about this seriously, her face scrunched up in concentration. "Will you miss other stuff too? Like my birthday or Christmas or other plays?" "I might," Emily said honestly. "My job is really unpredictable. But here's what I can promise. If I tell you I'm going to be somewhere, I will do everything in my power to be there. And if something happens and I can't make it, I'll tell you as soon as I know. I won't just disappear. Does that seem fair?" "I guess so." Lily swung her legs some more. "Sarah's mom is a doctor, and she misses stuff sometimes too. Sarah says it's okay because her mom saves people's lives, and that's really important." "What do you think? Do you think it's okay?" "I think..." Lily paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think it's okay if you miss some stuff. But I also think you should tell me yourself when you can't come. Not just have Dad tell me, because I'm not a baby." Emily felt tears pricking at her eyes. "You're absolutely right. From now on, if I have to miss something, I'll call you directly and explain. Deal?" "Deal." Lily held out her pinky finger, and Emily hooked hers around it solemnly. They sat there for a moment, pinkies linked, and then Lily asked, "Did the people you were helping get better, the ones from the building?" "Some of them did, some of them didn't. That's the hard part of my job. I can't save everyone." "That must be really sad." "It is really sad." Emily smiled through her tears.
But do you know what makes it better? Coming here and seeing you and your dad, remembering that there's more to life than work. Lily considered this, then slid out of her chair and walked around the table. Without a word, she climbed into Emily's lap and wrapped her arms around her neck. Emily hugged her back, feeling 7 years of fierce trust and generous forgiveness in that small body. "I'm glad you came back," Lily whispered. "I missed you." "I missed you too, sweetheart. So much." They stayed like that until Noah peeked his head into the kitchen, his expression melting when he saw them. "Everything okay in here?" "We're good, Dad," Lily announced, still not letting go of Emily. "Emily and I made a deal. She's going to call me directly when she has to miss stuff because I'm not a baby." Noah's eyes met Emily's over Lily's head, and the look in them made Emily's breath catch. It was love and relief and hope all mixed together. "That sounds like a good plan," he said. "Who wants a snack?" The rest of the afternoon passed in comfortable domesticity. Emily stayed for dinner, actual cooked dinner that Noah insisted on making, and helped Lily with her homework, and played 3 rounds of a board game she'd never heard of but that involved a lot of strategy and even more laughter. When Lily finally went to bed, Emily and Noah collapsed onto the couch, exhausted but lighter than they'd been in days. "Thank you," Noah said, pulling her close, "for showing up, for talking to her, for not giving up on us. Thank you for giving me another chance, for not deciding I was too much trouble." "Emily Rhodes, you are absolutely too much trouble." Noah kissed her temple. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." They talked late into the night, making plans and setting boundaries and figuring out how to build a life that honored both their responsibilities. It wasn't perfect. It wouldn't always be easy. But for the first time since the building collapse, Emily felt like they were going to be okay. She drove home at midnight, tired but hopeful, and fell asleep with her phone in her hand and a message from Noah on the screen. "Sleep well. See you Sunday for pancakes. We love you." 3 simple words that Emily had been too scared to believe she deserved. But maybe, just maybe, she was finally ready to accept them. The weeks that followed weren't easy, but they were real. Emily threw herself into her new role as charge nurse with the same intensity she brought to everything, but this time she was learning to build supports around herself instead of white-knuckling through alone. She and Noah created a shared calendar, color-coded and detailed, where they blocked out non-negotiables and marked flexible time. They established a system where Emily would text him at the start of each shift with her expected end time, then update him if things changed. It wasn't perfect, but it helped. More importantly, Emily kept her promise to Lily. When she had to miss the little girl's soccer game 2 weeks later because of a staffing emergency, Emily called Lily directly during her lunch break. "Hey, sweetheart, I have some bad news," Emily said, her heart heavy. "You can't come to my game." Lily's voice was disappointed, but not devastated. "I can't. 2 of our nurses called in sick and we're really short-staffed. I'm so sorry." There was a pause, then Lily asked, "Are there a lot of sick people who need you?" "Yeah, there are." "Okay, that's sad, but I understand." Another pause. "Will you come to my next game? It's in 2 weeks." Emily checked her calendar. "I'm not scheduled that day, so yes." "And Lily? I'm putting it in my calendar right now in red ink. That means it's a priority." "What if someone gets really, really hurt and needs you?" Emily had thought about this question a lot over the past few weeks. Then I'll have to make a really hard choice. But I promise you this, I won't make that choice lightly. And I'll always tell you the truth about why I can't be there. "Okay, that's fair." Lily's voice brightened. "Dad says you're coming for pancakes on Sunday." "I am, and I'm bringing chocolate chips." "The good kind or the regular kind?" "The good kind, obviously." Lily giggled, and Emily felt the knot in her chest loosen slightly. This was working. It was hard and imperfect and required constant communication, but it was working. That Sunday, Emily showed up at Noah's house at 9 in the morning with premium chocolate chips and a tiredness that went bone deep. She'd worked a double shift the day before and had barely slept, but there was nowhere else she wanted to be.
Noah took one look at her face and steered her to the couch. "You're exhausted." "I'm fine." "Emily." He crouched down in front of her, hands on her knees. "You don't have to be fine all the time, not here." "But it's pancake day. I promised Lily. Lily will understand if you need to rest, and I can make pancakes without you." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" Emily had to think about it. "Thursday?" "That's 3 days ago." Noah shook his head. "Okay, new plan. You're taking a nap while Lily and I make breakfast. When you wake up, we'll eat together. No arguments." "But I wanted to help." "Emily, let me help you. Please." There was something in his voice that made Emily stop protesting. She let Noah guide her to his bedroom, let him tuck a blanket around her, let herself sink into his pillows that smelled like him. The last thing she heard before sleep claimed her was the distant sound of Lily's laughter from the kitchen. When Emily woke up, sunlight was streaming through the window at a different angle. She checked her phone groggily. It was past noon. She'd slept for 3 hours. Panic seized her. She'd missed pancakes. She'd wasted half the day sleeping when she could have been spending time with Noah and Lily. She stumbled out of the bedroom, apologies already forming on her lips. But the scene that greeted her in the living room stopped her cold. Noah and Lily were in the middle of an elaborate blanket fort construction using every pillow and sheet in the house. They were debating the structural integrity of the east wall, their heads bent together in concentration, completely absorbed in the project. "I think we need more support here," Lily was saying, pointing to a sagging corner. "Like a tent pole or something." "Good eye." "What could we use?" Noah asked. "The broom from the kitchen?" "Perfect. Go grab it." Lily scampered off and nearly ran into Emily. "You're awake. Dad said to let you sleep as long as you needed. Are you feeling better?" "I am. Thank you." Emily looked at the fort, at Noah, who was watching her with a soft smile. "What's all this?" "Well, you missed pancakes," Lily explained seriously. "So we decided to build a fort and have an indoor picnic when you woke up. We made sandwiches, and Dad let me cut up fruit all by myself. Well, mostly by myself. He helped with the sharp knife parts." Emily felt tears pricking at her eyes. "You waited for me?" "Of course we waited," Noah said, standing up and crossing to her. "We wanted to eat together." "But I slept for 3 hours. I wasted—" "You didn't waste anything. You needed rest, so you rested. That's not waste, that's self-care." He pulled her into a hug. "And we had fun building the fort. Right, Lily?" "Right, come see inside, it's really cool." The fort was indeed really cool. They'd created multiple rooms using strategic furniture placement, with a main chamber big enough for all 3 of them to sit comfortably. They ate sandwiches and fruit while sitting on cushions, and Lily told Emily all about her soccer game in elaborate detail. "I didn't score," Lily said cheerfully, "but I did a really good pass to Sarah and she scored. Dad says that's just as important as scoring yourself." "Your dad is absolutely right," Emily agreed. "Teamwork is everything." "Are you and Dad a team?" Lily asked with the blunt curiosity of a 7-year-old. Emily glanced at Noah, who was trying not to smile. "Yeah, I think we are." "Good, because teams help each other. Like when Dad's really busy with work, Aunt Rebecca helps watch me, and when you're really tired, Dad makes you sleep." Lily took a bite of her sandwich. "That's what teams do." Out of the mouths of babes, Emily thought. This child had somehow articulated what Emily had been struggling to accept for months, that being part of a team meant both giving and receiving help, not just martyring yourself on the altar of independence. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the fort, playing games and reading stories, and Emily realized something profound. This was enough. She didn't have to be present for every moment to be part of their lives. She just had to be present for the moment she had, fully and completely. As the weeks turned into months, Emily found her rhythm. She learned to say no to extra shifts when she'd already committed to plans with Noah and Lily. She learned to ask for help from her team instead of trying to solve every problem herself. She learned that being a good charge nurse didn't mean working herself into the ground. It meant being strategic about where she invested her energy. And slowly, carefully, she learned to trust that Noah and Lily weren't going anywhere. The real test came 4 months later, on a Friday evening in late spring.
Emily had worked the early shift and was actually leaving the hospital at a reasonable hour for once. She was looking forward to spending the evening with Noah while Lily was at a sleepover, maybe cooking dinner together, maybe just talking without interruption for once. She was almost to her car when her phone rang. It was her mother. Emily almost didn't answer. Their relationship had been strained for years, limited to brief, awkward phone calls and obligatory holiday visits. But something made her pick up. "Hi, Mom." "Emily." Her mother's voice was tight with an emotion Emily couldn't identify. "I'm sorry to call out of the blue like this. Are you busy?" "Just getting off work. What's wrong?" "It's your father. He had a heart attack this afternoon. He's stable now, but Emily, it was close. Really close." Her mother's voice cracked. "Can you come? Please?" Emily felt the world tilt. "What hospital?" "Presbyterian in Dallas. I know it's a long drive. I know you're busy, but I'm coming. I'll be there as soon as I can." She hung up and immediately called Noah. He answered on the first ring, the smile evident in his voice. "Hey, beautiful. Still on for tonight?" "Noah, Emily's voice broke. "My dad had a heart attack. He's in Dallas. I need to go." "Oh, sweetheart." Noah's tone shifted immediately. "How bad is it?" "Mom said he's stable, but it was close." Emily was already getting in her car, her hand shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. "I'm sorry. I know we had plans. Emily, stop. This is your father. Of course you need to go." She heard rustling on his end. "Dallas is 3 hours from here. You shouldn't drive alone, not when you're this upset." "Where are you?" "Still in the hospital parking lot." "Stay there. I'm coming to get you." "Noah, you don't have to." "I want to. Lily's at Sarah's for the night anyway. I'm already grabbing my keys. Just wait for me, okay?" Emily sat in her car, trying to process everything. Her father, her distant, disapproving father who'd never understood her choices, had almost died. And her first instinct had been to call Noah, not to tough it out alone, not to handle it herself, but to lean on the person who'd been teaching her for months that she didn't have to carry everything by herself. Noah's truck pulled up next to her car 15 minutes later. He got out, came to her driver's side window, and waited while she climbed out on shaky legs. "Hey," he said softly, pulling her into his arms. "It's okay. He's stable. You're going to get there, and everything's going to be okay." Emily buried her face in his chest and let herself break down, just for a moment. Then she pulled herself together, wiped her eyes, and looked up at him. "You really don't have to come with me. It's a 6-hour round trip and you barely know my parents. I know you, and you shouldn't have to do this alone." Noah grabbed her overnight bag from her car. She always kept one packed, a habit from her residency days. "Come on, we'll take my truck. You can call your mom on the way and get updates." The drive to Dallas was long and tense. Emily called her mother twice for updates. Her father was awake, asking for her, stable but shaken. Noah drove steadily, one hand on the wheel and the other holding Emily's, letting her talk when she needed to and sitting in comfortable silence when she didn't. "I don't know what to say to him," Emily admitted as they neared the city. "We haven't had a real conversation in years. Every time we talk, it turns into an argument about my choices." "Maybe this isn't the time for arguments," Noah suggested gently. "Maybe this is just the time to be there." They arrived at the hospital just after 8. Emily's mother was in the cardiac ICU waiting room, looking smaller and more fragile than Emily had ever seen her. When she saw Emily, she stood up, and for a moment they just stared at each other across the sterile space. Then her mother crossed the room and pulled Emily into a fierce hug. "Thank you for coming," she whispered. "I know things have been difficult between us, but I'm so glad you're here." "Of course I came." Emily hugged her back, breathing in the familiar scent of her mother's perfume. "How is he?" "Scared, tired, but alive." Her mother pulled back, noticing Noah for the first time. "And you are?" "Noah Walker, ma'am." Noah extended his hand. "I'm Emily's boyfriend," Emily supplied, the word feeling both inadequate and exactly right. "Noah drove me here." Her mother shook his hand, her sharp eyes taking in everything. The way Noah stood close to Emily, the way Emily leaned into him slightly, the way he looked at her daughter like she was something precious. "Thank you for taking care of her." "It's not a hardship," Noah said with a small smile. A nurse appeared and told them Emily's father was asking for her. Emily looked at Noah, suddenly nervous. "Go," he said. "I'll be right here when you need me." Emily followed the nurse down the corridor to her father's room. He looked old lying in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and IVs. His face was gray, his eyes tired, but they lit up when he saw her. "Emily, girl," he said, his voice weak but warm, with an affection she hadn't heard in years. "Hi, Dad." She sat down in the chair next to his bed, taking his hand carefully. "You gave us quite a scare." "Gave myself quite a scare, too." He managed a small smile. "Doctor says I need to make some changes. Diet, exercise, stress management. Your mother's already planning to throw out all my favorite foods." "Good. You need to take care of yourself." They sat in silence for a moment, and Emily could feel years of unspoken words pressing between them. "I'm sorry," her father said finally, "for being so hard on you, for not supporting your choices, for making you feel like you had to choose between family and your career." Emily's throat tightened. "Dad, let me finish." He squeezed her hand weakly. "When I was lying there thinking I might die, you want to know what I regretted most? Not the things I did, the things I didn't do. The relationship I didn't have with my brilliant, compassionate, dedicated daughter because I was too stubborn to see that your path was just as valid as the one I wanted for you." Tears were streaming down Emily's face now. "I just wanted you to be proud of me." "I am proud of you, so proud it makes my chest hurt, though that might also be the heart attack." He smiled through his own tears. "You save lives, Emily. You make a real difference in the world. What could be more important than that?" "But you always said I should prioritize family, so I was wrong. And I think I was jealous too, if I'm being honest. Jealous that you had the courage to pursue something you were passionate about when I spent my whole life playing it safe." He paused to catch his breath. "Your mother told me about the young man who drove you here. He important to you?" "Very important." "He support your work?" "More than I ever thought possible." "Then I'm happy for you. You deserve someone who sees your value, who doesn't try to make you smaller." Her father's eyes were getting heavy. "Bring him by tomorrow so I can meet him properly. Tell him he better treat my daughter right or he'll answer to me. Heart attack or no heart attack." Emily laughed through her tears. "I'll tell him." She sat with her father until he fell asleep, then made her way back to the waiting room where Noah and her mother were talking quietly. They both looked up when she entered. "How is he?" her mother asked. "Tired, but okay. Better than okay, actually." Emily looked between them. "What were you two talking about?" "I was just telling Noah about you as a child," her mother said with a small smile. "How you used to play doctor with your stuffed animals. How you'd bandage them all up and insist on checking their temperatures every hour." "Mom, please don't." She also mentioned how you once tried to perform surgery on your teddy bear with kitchen scissors, Noah added, his eyes twinkling. "I was trying to fix his stuffing. It was very important medical work." Her mother stood up, gathering her purse. "I should get back to your father. Emily, there's a hotel 2 blocks from here. I've already booked you a room. Both of you," she added, looking at Noah. "Separate rooms, of course." "Mom, you didn't have to." "I wanted to. You drove 3 hours to be here. The least I can do is make sure you have somewhere comfortable to sleep." She hugged Emily again, holding on longer this time. "Thank you for coming. It means more than you know." After her mother left, Emily collapsed into the chair next to Noah. "That was surreal." "Good surreal or bad surreal?" "Good, I think. My dad actually apologized for not supporting me. I don't think that's ever happened before." Noah pulled her close, and Emily let herself sink into him. Sometimes it takes almost losing something to realize its value. Your parents almost lost you, not physically, but emotionally. Maybe this scared them into seeing that. They stayed at the hospital for another hour, then checked into the hotel her mother had booked. Noah walked Emily to her room, kissed her goodnight at the door, and headed to his own room down the hall. Emily lay in the unfamiliar bed, processing everything that had happened in the last few hours. Her phone buzzed with a text from Noah. "Proud of you for being there for your parents. That took courage. Sleep well." Emily typed back, "Thank you for being there for me. I couldn't have done this alone." "You could have, but you didn't have to. That's the difference." Emily fell asleep thinking about that difference, about how much her life had changed since that first awkward date. She'd gone from someone who apologized for her existence to someone who could lean on others without feeling weak. From someone convinced she had to choose between love and career to someone building a life that honored both. The next morning, Emily and Noah went back to the hospital together. Her father was awake and much more alert, already arguing with the nurses about his dietary restrictions. When they walked in, he took one look at Noah and said, "So you're the one who's been taking care of my daughter." "Trying to, sir," Noah said, shaking his hand carefully, "though she doesn't make it easy. That's my girl, stubborn as they come." Her father smiled. "Thank you for bringing her here, for being there for her." "It's not a hardship, sir. Emily's pretty easy to show up for." Emily's father studied Noah for a long moment, then nodded approvingly. "You'll do." They spent the day at the hospital, Emily dividing her time between her father's room and helping her mother navigate the overwhelming amount of medical information being thrown at them. It felt strange to be on this side of the healthcare experience, to be the worried family member instead of the confident professional. But it also gave Emily a new perspective on what her patients' families went through, the fear and uncertainty and desperate hope. By late afternoon, her father was stable enough that the doctors were talking about moving him out of ICU. Emily's mother was visibly relieved, some of the tension finally leaving her shoulders. "You should head home," she told Emily. "You've done enough, and you probably need to get back to work." "I'm off until Monday, actually. I made sure to request the time when I took the charge nurse position." Emily saw her mother's surprised expression. "I learned to plan ahead for important things." "That's good. That's really good, honey." Her mother hesitated, then added, "Maybe once your father's out of the hospital, you could come visit? Bring Noah and his daughter? I'd like to get to know them properly. Get to know you properly, too. The real you, not the version we've been arguing with for years." "I'd like that, Mom. A lot." Noah and Emily drove back to Austin that evening, arriving home just before midnight. Noah pulled up outside Emily's apartment building and turned off the engine. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, weirdly, I think I am." Emily leaned her head back against the seat. "Thank you for coming with me, for being there through all of that. Where else would I be?" Noah reached over and took her hand. "Emily, I need to tell you something." "Okay." "These past few months, watching you grow and change and learn to let people help you, it's been incredible. You're incredible. And I know we've been taking things slow, being careful because of Lily, making sure this is real and lasting." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But I'm sure now. I'm completely, absolutely sure about you. About us." Emily's heart started racing. "Noah, I'm not asking you to move in with me or anything like that. Not yet, anyway. But I want you to know that when I think about my future, you're in it. Always. You and me and Lily figuring out this messy, complicated, beautiful life together." He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. "I love you, Emily Rhodes. Not despite your career or your complications or your late nights, but because of all of it. Because you're you." Emily felt tears streaming down her face for what felt like the 100th time that weekend. But these were different tears, not of fear or sadness, but of joy and relief and overwhelming gratitude. "I love you too," she whispered. "So much it scares me sometimes." "That's okay. We can be scared together." Noah smiled that beautiful, steady smile that had captured her heart from the very beginning. "Now go get some sleep. You've had a long couple of days." Emily got out of the truck, but before she closed the door, she leaned back in. "Noah, when you do ask me to move in with you, the answer's going to be yes." His smile could have lit up the entire city. "Good to know. I'll keep that in mind." The next few months passed in a blur of work and laughter, and slowly building a life that felt solid and real. Emily's father recovered well from his heart attack, and her parents made genuine efforts to be part of her life. Not the life they'd wanted for her, but the one she'd actually chosen. They came to Austin twice, meeting Lily and falling completely in love with her, seeing firsthand how Noah and Emily had built something that worked despite all the challenges. Emily continued to thrive in her role as charge nurse, implementing new protocols and mentoring younger nurses while still finding time for the patient care she loved. She learned to delegate, to trust her team, to recognize that she didn't have to save everyone by herself. And on a Saturday morning, 6 months after her father's heart attack, Emily showed up at Noah's house for pancakes to find Lily waiting on the porch with barely contained excitement. "What's going on?" Emily asked, suspicious. "You'll see," Lily said mysteriously, grabbing her hand and dragging her inside. Noah was in the kitchen, but instead of making pancakes, he was just standing there looking nervous. On the counter was a small velvet box. Emily's breath caught. "So here's the thing," Noah started, his voice slightly shaky. "I had this whole plan. I was going to wait until next month, take you to that fancy restaurant you mentioned, do this properly with candlelight and music and all the romance." "But," Emily prompted, her heart hammering, "but Lily pointed out that you hate fancy restaurants because the portions are too small, and you'd rather just be here with us anyway, and she's right. This is where you belong, not in some stuffy restaurant, but here, in this kitchen, with us." He picked up the box and crossed to Emily, Lily bouncing excitedly beside him. "Emily Rhodes, you have completely destroyed my nice, quiet, predictable life." Noah was smiling even as his voice shook. "You've filled it with chaos and hospital emergencies and late-night phone calls and more love than I ever thought possible. And I don't want to go back to the way things were before you crashed into my life. Literally crashed into me, by the way. We should probably talk about your coordination issues at some point." Emily laughed through her tears. "I love you," Noah continued. "I love your dedication and your compassion and your terrible habit of forgetting to eat lunch. I love how you call Lily directly when you have to cancel plans. I love how you've learned to lean on us instead of carrying everything alone. I love every single part of you, including the parts that make this relationship complicated." He opened the box, revealing a simple but beautiful ring. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life showing up for you the way you show up for everyone else?" "Yes," Emily said without hesitation. "Yes, yes, yes." Lily shrieked with joy as Noah slipped the ring onto Emily's finger. Then all three of them were hugging and laughing and crying, and Emily realized this was what happiness looked like. Not perfect, not easy, but real and messy and more beautiful than anything she'd ever imagined. "Does this mean you're going to live here?" Lily asked, looking up at Emily with hopeful eyes. Emily glanced at Noah, who nodded. "If you want to. No rush, but when you're ready, we want you here. This is your home too." Emily looked around the kitchen, at the calendar on the wall covered in color-coded plans, at Lily's artwork on the fridge, at the coffee maker Noah had bought specifically because she liked her coffee stronger than he did. This place had become her home months ago. She'd just been too scared to fully acknowledge it. "I want to," she said. "I really, really want to." 2 months later, Emily moved into Noah's house with one carload of possessions and a heart so full it felt like it might burst. They turned the spare room into her office space, somewhere she could decompress after hard shifts and do administrative work when needed. They established new routines. Sunday pancakes expanded to include Emily's famous scrambled eggs, weeknight dinners became a shared responsibility, and bedtime stories for Lily became a three-person affair. It wasn't always smooth. There were still canceled plans and missed dinners, and nights when Emily came home too exhausted to do anything but collapse. There were still emergencies that pulled her away at the worst times, still moments of frustration and disappointment. But there were also mornings waking up next to Noah, his steady breathing a reminder that she wasn't alone anymore. There were soccer games where she actually showed up, cheering louder than anyone else in the stands. There were quiet evenings helping Lily with homework while Noah cooked dinner, the three of them moving around each other in comfortable synchronicity. There were moments when Emily looked around at this life she'd built, messy and imperfect and absolutely nothing like she'd planned, and felt a gratitude so profound it brought her to tears. On a warm Friday evening, 8 months after moving in, Emily came home late from a particularly brutal shift. It was past 9 and she was exhausted and emotionally drained and covered in someone else's blood despite having changed her scrubs. She walked through the front door to find Noah and Lily waiting for her, or not anxiously, not impatiently, just waiting, because they knew she'd need them when she got home. "Bad one?" Noah asked, reading her face immediately. Emily nodded, not trusting her voice. "Come here," he said, pulling her into his arms while Lily wrapped herself around Emily's legs in a fierce hug. They stood there in the entryway for a long moment, the three of them tangled together, and Emily felt the weight of the day slowly begin to lift. This was what she'd been looking for her whole life without knowing it. Not someone who would fix her problems or make her life easier, but people who would stand beside her while she faced them. People who saw her at her worst and loved her anyway. People who understood that sometimes the best thing you could offer someone was just your presence. "I saved dinner for you," Noah said eventually, "and Lily made you a picture. Want to see?" Emily pulled back from the hug, wiping her eyes. "I'd love to see." The picture was of the three of them standing in front of a house, all holding hands, with a bright yellow sun overhead, and the words, "Our Family," written across the top in Lily's careful printing. "It's for your office," Lily explained, "so when you have hard days at work, you can look at it and remember we're waiting for you at home." Emily knelt down and pulled Lily into another hug. This one so tight the little girl squeaked. "Thank you, sweetheart. I love it. I love you." "I love you too, Emily, even when you're tired and sad and smell like hospital." Emily laughed, the sound coming out watery but genuine. "Even then?" "Especially then. That's when you need love the most." Later that night, after Lily was in bed and Emily had showered away the day and eaten the dinner Noah had kept warm for her, they sat together on the couch with Emily's feet in Noah's lap and his hands massaging the tension from her calves. "I've been thinking," Emily said quietly. "About? About setting a wedding date. If you're ready." Noah's hands stilled on her feet. "Really? You're sure?" "I'm sure." Emily smiled at him. "I spent so long thinking I had to have everything figured out before I could commit to anything. But I'm learning that life doesn't work that way. We just have to take the leap and figure it out as we go." "What changed your mind?" "Coming home tonight, seeing you and Lily waiting for me, realizing that this is what I want for the rest of my life. The good days and the hard days and everything in between. With you." Noah pulled her close, and Emily settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "How do you feel about next spring?" he asked. "Nothing fancy, just family and close friends. Maybe in the backyard." "That sounds perfect, simple, real." Emily paused. "Can Lily be the flower girl?" "She'd never forgive us if she wasn't." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, making plans and dreaming about the future. Eventually, Noah asked the question Emily had been expecting. "What about work? Are you going to keep the same schedule after we're married?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "I love what I do, but I'm also learning that there's more to life than work. I'm thinking about cutting back to 4 days a week instead of 5. Still keeping the charge nurse position, but giving myself a little more breathing room." "You don't have to do that for me. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. For us. Because I want to be present for this life we're building. I want to have time to just exist without always being in crisis mode." She looked up at him. "Is that okay? Does that make me less dedicated or committed?" "Emily, it makes you human and smart and someone who's finally learning that self-care isn't selfish." Noah kissed her forehead. "I'm proud of you." The wedding, when it came the following April, was everything Emily had never known she wanted. Simple and intimate, held in Noah's backyard with white string lights and wildflowers, and their closest friends and family. Lily took her role as flower girl very seriously, wearing a dress she'd helped pick out and scattering petals with great concentration. Emily's parents were there, her father healthy and beaming with pride, her mother crying happy tears. Emily's colleagues from the hospital came, along with Noah's crew and Lily's teachers and the neighbors who'd become friends. It was small and personal and absolutely perfect. When Emily walked down the makeshift aisle, no fancy dress, just a simple white sundress and bare feet in the grass, Noah's expression made her breath catch. He looked at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked, like she was exactly what he'd been waiting for his whole life. They wrote their own vows. Noah went first, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. "Emily, when we met, I was living a good life, a safe life, a predictable life. And then you crashed into it, literally, and turned everything upside down. You showed me that good isn't the same as great, that safe isn't the same as fulfilling, that predictable is actually kind of boring." The crowd laughed. "You taught me that love isn't about finding someone who fits perfectly into your life. It's about finding someone worth rearranging your life for." someone whose dreams are as important as your own, someone who makes you want to be better, braver, more present. That's who you are to me, and I promise to spend the rest of my life showing up for you the way you show up for everyone else, in the hard moments and the easy ones, in the chaos and the quiet, for better or worse, but always together. By the time Emily took her turn, she was already crying. Noah, I spent most of my adult life convinced I had to choose career or love, success or happiness, being true to myself or being acceptable to others. And then I met you, and you asked me a question no one had ever asked before. Why can't you have both? She paused to wipe her eyes. You didn't ask me to be smaller or quieter or less ambitious. You just asked me to let you love me. And that was terrifying because I'd spent so long believing I didn't deserve that kind of love, that I was too much and not enough simultaneously. But you proved me wrong. Every single day, you proved me wrong. And Emily looked at the little girl standing beside them, who was trying very hard not to cry. You taught me that love doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as showing up, as telling the truth, as making room in your heart for people who are willing to make room for you. So I promise to keep showing up, to keep telling the truth, to keep making room for both of you for the rest of my life. When they kissed, sealing the vows they'd just made, Lily cheered louder than anyone. And when they turned to face their guests as husband and wife, Emily felt something she'd never felt before. Completely, wholly, unreservedly at peace. The reception was casual and joyful, with too much food and dancing under the stars and toasts that were equal parts heartfelt and hilarious. Jessica gave a speech about how stubborn Emily had been about opening her heart, how certain she'd been that love wasn't in the cards for her. And now look at you, Jessica said, raising her glass. Married to a man who thinks your terrible habit of skipping meals is endearing and a stepdaughter who brags about you at school. I've never seen you happier. I've never seen you more yourself. Here's to proving yourself wrong. Emily's father stood up next, his voice shaking slightly. I spent a lot of years thinking I knew what was best for my daughter, thinking she should want what I wanted for her. It took almost losing her and almost dying myself to realize that Emily knew what she needed all along. She needed to save lives. She needed to make a difference. She needed someone who would support those dreams instead of asking her to give them up. Noah, thank you for being that person, for seeing what took me decades to understand, that my daughter is extraordinary exactly as she is. By the time the speeches ended, there wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. As the party wound down and guests started leaving, Emily found herself standing with Noah and Lily, watching the last of the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Best day ever, Lily declared, leaning against Emily's side. I agree, Emily said, wrapping her arm around the girl who'd become her daughter in every way that mattered. Me too, Noah added, pulling both of them close. Though I have a feeling there are going to be a lot more best days ahead. And he was right. There were hard days too, shifts that broke Emily's heart, emergencies that pulled her away from family dinners, moments when balancing everything felt impossible. But there were also lazy Sunday mornings and Lily's science fair projects and quiet evenings on the couch and 1,000 small moments of joy that Emily had never let herself believe she could have. She didn't have to choose anymore. She had her career and her family, her passion and her peace, her purpose and her people. She had everything she'd ever wanted and everything she'd been too scared to want. And on those really hard days when Emily came home exhausted and defeated, she'd walk through the front door to find Noah and Lily waiting, sometimes with dinner, sometimes with hugs, sometimes with nothing but their presence and their love. And that was always, always enough. Emily Rhodes had spent years apologizing for who she was, convinced that her ambition and dedication made her unlovable. But Noah Walker had seen the truth, that those very qualities made her exactly who she was meant to be, not despite her calling, but because of it. And Lily had taught her the simplest, most profound truth of all, that love doesn't require perfection, it just requires showing up. So that's what Emily did. She showed up for her patients, saving lives and making differences big and small. She showed up for her family, imperfectly but authentically. She showed up for herself, finally learning that self-care wasn't selfish but necessary. And in return, she got a life that was messy and beautiful and real and hers. Exactly as it should be.